Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5 The Zone. Welcome in on a Friday morning. Well, football is here. High school football. College, we're still a couple weeks away. Well, we got week 0 next week. I don't understand why the Big 12 isn't taking more advantage of week 0. Come on, the commissioner is going to revolutionize the game. He wants to go to Mexico. If you go to Mexico, you get to play an extra game. Go to Mexico. The game's not part of your TV package. It's on a neutral field. You got a chance to play somebody and sell that game to somebody who wants football when there's no football. Seems to me like that game ought to make money. I don't understand why that isn't happening. Make it happen. Let's go. Stay in San Diego. Go play in Tijuana. They got a soccer stadium there, seats 35,000 or something. Go play there. Go fly to Monterrey. They actually have a traditional, not football soccer, but American football, college football at Monterrey. Arson went down there for a game years ago, and there were football lines all over the field. You think when you go to Mexico, you wouldn't have that, and yet there they were. Somebody ought to pull that off. I don't understand. We ought to have college football a week earlier. The pros are playing the preseason games, but the high school kids are playing games that count. And they're not region games yet. It's a kickoff game, but they've got this new everybody's in the state tournament deal. Almost everybody. There's a few schools that don't make it. And it's all about basically RPI. And so all these games matter. And we had a good one to kick it off last night. I don't know if you watched Timpview. And Timpview is the defending 5A state champ, and they were playing Sky Ridge, who was the 6A runner-up, lost in the final to Corner Canyon. So two really good programs, always loaded with good players. And Timpview scored the last 3 touchdowns of the game and came back to win after trailing 29-14. They came back to win 33-29. So good game, entertaining game, throwing the ball. It was the level of high school football has just gotten a lot better. All the college coaches say it, and just watch games. There'll be a bunch of games streamed tonight. There'll be another game on TV tonight. There's plenty, and of course you may go to a game and see one in person with the full Friday night schedule kicking off. There's just a ton of stuff. Just a ton of football out there if you appreciate good football. The first of a 10-week regular season and then 5 weeks of playoff to crown a champion right before Thanksgiving. So that's the high school football. Enjoyed watching that. Enjoyed watching the kids. Cal Whittingham was at the game. They showed him on TV. And he there had to be a lot of college coaches there, head coaches, assistant coaches, coordinators, whatever, because that game had I think, and it depends on what level you're talking at, but there were at least 10 Division I recruitable players. Now, some of those will go to Power 4 leagues, some of those go to G5, some of those kids might end up signing, with a Big Sky team or a WAC team. But nonetheless, there's a lot of future college football players there. And that's just the seniors, by the way. That 10 number, that's just the seniors. They're also loaded with juniors, the 2026 recruiting class. So it's crazy. It's crazy how good football has gotten here. Now, everybody wants to land the local kids, right? But that is not the only way to build a program. There is also the transfer portal. And now you're going to meet Kenan Johnson. He is a cornerback at the University of Utah. He's from Florida. That's where he grew up, played his high school football there. He went to Georgia Tech. He's already had 5 years of college football. He only played 3 games his first year. His second year was the COVID year, which everyone gets that one back. He only played 1 game his third year. So you can play up to 4 games now and get the redshirt year. And so he's got a 6th year. And he has played more the last couple of years in his career. 3 forced fumbles, 1 pick. Looked up some of his stats. Where does he fit in with the U? Why does he come to the U? I think we know why all defensive backs go to the U. They get coached up, and it gives them whatever opportunity they have to get to the next level. It gives them their best chance. They're going to get coached up. It still comes down to the measurables. The coaches can't make you taller. Maybe the strength and conditioning coach can work on quickness and explosiveness a little bit, but how fast are you? But the size, the reach, nobody's going to do much about that. But they'll make you better, and they'll give you your best chance. So Kenan Johnson leaving Georgia Tech for the University of Utah. Here he is with the media.
How are you sort of adjusting to fall camp, and what's the DB room looking like?
As far as the adjustments, I think fall camp I've been coming along really well. I'm starting to feel a lot more comfortable in the defense. It's starting to make a lot more sense in terms of alignment, assignment, things like that. As far as the DB group, man, I love the guys, man. We love you. They're the guys, man. We all close. We got a lot of confidence in one another. We all think we can do similar things and just help contribute to the defense.
What are some of those adjustments that you've had to make coming to Utah? You've played at the D1 level before, obviously, but Morgan Scally kind of throws some wrinkles in that maybe you haven't seen before.
Yeah, so, I mean, one of the main things is just how fast we play, the tempo, just being able to get a line, knowing what I have to do, knowing the adjustments, and more anticipating, from what I see from the offense has kind of been like the main thing. But once I, figured out what I need to do, I've been a lot more confident in lining up and knowing my technique and just executing.
There's a lot of experienced talent, but also some transfers, including yourself. Is there a period of just kind of building that chemistry so you know where each other are at the right time? Absolutely. Communication is key. Just building that communication with the guys each and every practice, every time we get the opportunity to. That's going to allow us to continue to improve and build. Yeah. What have you seen from the safeties, Nate and Teo? I mean, these guys they were in the program last year. Yeah. They're expected to fill the shoes of a couple guys that were in the NFL. Absolutely. Now. I think Nate and Teo complement each other. Both guys are different. They have different skills that they can bring to the defense. Teo, he's more of like a guy that can fly around, ball hog, go get the ball. Nate Ritchie is a smart individual. He's going to know where to, where the offense might do. He's going to be able to fit in the run. He's going to be able to, help communicate with the backers and things like that.
How impressed have you been with Zamiah Vaughn?
Zamiah, that's my guy, man. I think that me and Zamiah, we push each other every day. He's competing to be the best. I'm competing to be the best corner. So just having the talent, having a guy like that on the other side of me is definitely allowing me to, continue to grow and become a better corner myself.
Do you feel like you are the fastest corner?
I think I am one of the fastest corners.
What about the fastest?
The fastest, I don't know. I can't necessarily say that, I can't say that.
What ultimately went into your decision to commit to Utah? I mean, walk me through what that process looked like and why you ultimately chose it.
Yeah, the process for me was, I paid a lot of attention to college sports, not just like my conference. I will always see Utah producing like defensive players, DBs going to the next level. Sharif Shaw was a big part of my recruiting process. Just talking on the phone with him having to vision me, like, and him being on the same page or like where I want to go and how I can be used. Just seeing him, make all conference corners year in and year out was a big part of me wanting to come and try to be a part of a defense that could, help produce those type of players, those caliber players. So that was just the main thing. I came up here, I love the visit, I love the scenery. It wasn't too much for me. And it was just, business and ball. And that's what I liked about this place.
Yeah, sure. One more if it's over there. What's the scouting report on Cam Rising and some of these receivers? Obviously, he's coming off a long time without playing football, but you're as well qualified as anyone to give the scouting report.
Well, as far as I can see, the receivers and Cam are coming on just fine, man. Those guys are lights out in terms of their chemistry already. They seem to be on the same page every practice. If I'm not on point, I feel like if I make the smallest mistake, that's going to cause me. So I feel like that's a good sign for those guys over there, just making me be on my toes each and every day.
There's Utah cornerback Kenan Johnson with the media. All right, coming up, Hans Olsen, Bill Bender. We spoke with both those guys in the show yesterday. We're going to replay those interviews for you. Hans Olsen talking Cougars, Bill Bender talking the future of college football. Some about this coming season. I really think this 12-team playoff, enjoy it for 2 years because it's going to 14 or it's going to 16. There is no way they're going to keep giving byes to ACC teams and to Big 12 teams. And I also think there is no way they're going to guarantee them top 4 seeds. Maybe they'll do it for the conference champs because they need the conference title games to mean something. So maybe the Big 10 and the SEC champs will go to 14. And that adds 2 games, which makes more money. But maybe they just go to 16 because that adds 2 more games that make more money. We'll see how all that plays out. But we talk about all of that with Bill Bender coming up. Hans Olsen is next, discussing all things BYU and how the Cougar program is shaping up. And maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I'm just too much of an optimist. I think the Cougars won 5 games last year with a completely inexperienced backup and 2 or 3 games that they lost because they made massive blunders and gave up big plays and special teams touchdown. A special teams touchdown against Oklahoma that swung the game on that 99-yard pick. That was a 14-point swing. The Kansas game, they gave up a touchdown right at the start of the game, another one right at the start of the second half. If they just stop turning the ball over and giving up pick sixes and scooping scores, I think 5-7 becomes 7-5. And I think they've got more talent this year. They've certainly got experience at quarterback, right? If Bohannon wins the job, which I think is probably the best way to guess right now, and I don't have any inside info on that. That is my best guess off what I've heard and what I've been told and what I suspect. But assuming he wins and Retzlaff's the quarterback, well, now Retzlaff's got 4 games under his belt. I mean, I thought he looked a lot better in his third and fourth game. I thought the team played better in the third and fourth game under him than they did in the first and second. I don't think that's really debatable. And talking to him a couple of times here in the offseason, I mean, his confidence level, he is just so much, and the coach is saying the same thing. He's way in front of where he was. So they got a better backup quarterback position. Most teams have to win games with their backup quarterbacks. Sometimes you got to win games with your third quarterback, and that's a big ask. So I'm a little more positive on BYU getting to 6 or 7 games. I mean, the top of the league is strong, and they don't catch any breaks at the top of the league. So I'm not sure I see him going for 8 or 9. But we'll talk with Hans about that next. Stay with us. DJ and PK. It's 97.5 The Zone. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. Hans Olsen is back, co-host of Hans and Scotty G, joining us to talk football 2 weeks out from the first weekend of college football. Hans, good morning.
Well, here's a crazy memory for you, DJ. This goes back to 2006, my first year on air with you guys. PK was out. I filled in for him. You and I were at Granado's, eating some amazing sandwiches and some incredible cake. That is 18 seasons now. It's just crazy how time flies, man.
Yes, we agree with you on that. Time is flying. And the funny thing is, we get older, the kids stay the same, and the players go through a lot of the same stuff. College football changes a little bit, but here it is, another quarterback derby, and it's going on and on. Now, other quarterback derbies have gone on and on for different reasons. There are times the coaches have said, well, if I name one, the other guy's going to transfer, so I'm going to play them both in the first game, and we'll keep this thing going. And in this case, I don't know that fits because I think Retzlaff's pretty invested and Bohannon's at the end of his eligibility, so I don't think that's a factor, although I don't know, transferring's crazy, maybe it is. And the Bohannon's coming back from an injury, so they're trying to give him time to show what he can do, and from everything we're hearing, he's doing a lot more. He's made major progress. We're hearing that from him and from coaches and from receivers. And then I also think there's a chance that both these guys are going to start at some point this season, so they might as well keep prepping them like they're both going to be starters, because at some point they both are going to be starters. Maybe there's another reason out there. Why is this maybe it's just legitimately that close? What do you think? What do you know?
I think it's legitimately that close, and I think each bring a unique component, and I think that they're probably looking at their running back situation, trying to figure out how available LJ Martin will be and what they can do in their run game with LJ. The other thing is they want to get it right, so they don't have to second-guess themselves and then make a different decision 2 or 3 games later after some hiccups, because the last thing they want to do is make the decision and then have a mess on their hands and then have to say, okay, we were wrong. Yeah, we evaluated it as long as we did, and we were wrong, and have to go back to the drawing board. The other thing is, what exactly is forcing them to make the decision? You know, Aaron Roderick said, well, we wanted to get to a point where everybody on the team is like, duh, yeah, that's the starter. Well, that might be the case already. At least it always was in our camps. Within a week, within maybe 2 weeks, it was like, yeah, duh, that's the starter. Even that year that we went through Charlie Peterson and Brandon Doman and
Ingeman.
What's that?
Ingeman.
Yeah, Brett Ingeman. Like we went through a race of quarterbacks going into that season. We all kind of knew who the guy was going to be at that point, and then we kind of watched the rotation of it because of injury and because of other necessities. And I just think they want to get it right. I don't think they feel like they have to absolutely come out and announce it until they know for a fact, and so they're just slow playing it.
Well, if it's that close 3 weeks into camp, can they get it wrong? You see where I'm going with that?
Yeah, I think they can because, and it's crazy because it feels like a duh thing to me. I look at Gary Bohannon and I'm just like, duh, like he's healthy, he's been at this level, he's won at this level. He looks really good. I've been out there. I've had an opportunity a couple times to see his movements, and just to see him standing next to McKay Hillstead and see him standing next to Jake Retzlaff and then see him exit the pocket and the way he does it, and then see the traditional fluid throw motion over the top instead of the sidearm flip and fling like Retzlaff. And there's a lot of things I see. I'm like, duh, that's duh. Like, make it him. But I do think, and I don't know why. I think it's going to be Bohannon, and I'm not 100% what is keeping them from announcing it other than the fact they don't have to.
Retzlaff's ability to run, you mentioned, is LJ going to be healthy? How much does that factor into how they deploy him and their quarterbacks?
Well, I worry about it because a season without LJ Martin, where you didn't bring any transfers in for the first time in a few years, and there's not a ton of depth. And I know Hinckley Rapati's got a bunch of upside, and I do like Miles Davis. He can get outside so well, but a year without LJ Martin could be a long year at that running back position. So I think you slow play it. I think you slowly ease him back into hits. And depending on whatever that injury is, I think that you just take it really slow until you get to conference play. Thing is, you know you're going to need him against SMU and Wyoming, so you're going to have to throw him into full action if you feel like you're pressed in a need. But I just want to make sure that they do everything possible to make sure LJ Martin is there through conference play.
DJ was asking earlier if we thought that BYU had professional or NFL receivers. I said I wasn't sure. I didn't think so. What do you think?
I think Chase Roberts he's NFL potential. I think Darius Lassiter has a lot to prove, and there's some unknowns. I don't think Keelan Marion is. I don't think Cody Epps is. But I do think that they're all really good college football players. I do think Chase Roberts has the size, and I think that he's got the hands and he's got the confidence that maybe he gets a shot. Maybe if he blows up this year, maybe back in 6th, 7th round or something. But I think that he is a potential next level receiver. He's a durable body too, so, and I just love his game. But I think that the other guys, Kingston and everybody else that I've mentioned, I think that they've just got a lot more to prove.
Maybe Phillips down the road.
I really like JoJo. I do, and I like Tay, the new Nakua boy. I've had an opportunity to see him a little bit, and I like him a lot. He's got some confidence. It's funny because I'm out there watching him, and I feel like I'm watching a smaller version of Samson. And we all watched Samson for a lot of years when he was at University of Utah and then made his transition to BYU, and now he's getting his shot with the Saints and getting another NFL shot. And I hope he can do the most with it. But those guys bring a lot of energy. Yeah, JoJo maybe down the line. PK, I need to see him in a game situation, but I think that both he and Tay Nakua could possibly have it down the line.
PK and I were talking about the odds of getting to 6 wins. I think it's more likely than not. I think it hangs in the balance, and there'll be some stuff that breaks both for and against them, so there's a little wiggle room there. I don't really see an off-the-charts 9-3 or anything like that coming, but they were so close last year in 3 games that it doesn't seem to me that and their backup quarterback spot's going to be better this year than it was last year, however the starter role works out. So I think 6 or 7 wins is more likely than getting stuck on 5, but there's no guarantees. What do you think?
Well, I think that you're very accurate. I think both of you are right on it, and this is what BYU fans are going to have to wait on and look for. You're probably going to have 4 wins going into the final 2 games. Or at least the hope is you have at least 4 wins going into those final 2 games, which I believe are Houston and Arizona State.
Yeah.
So that's it right there, DJ. You're going to have to wait and possibly until game 12 to know if you're bowl eligible. And it might be a situation, again, like it was last year, sitting through a lot of games and some losses because that schedule gets so wacky through September, through October, and into November that we might all be waiting until those final 2 games to see what ground they can make up. Now, the good news is I think Houston and Arizona State are ripe for the picking. The bad news is you got to make it through an entire season, and you got to have your quarterback straight, and you got to have a healthy team, and you got to have all the luck on your side to make sure that Houston and Arizona State are wins. But I do think, I know there's a lot of people that are high on Central Florida, and Gus Malzahn with KJ Jefferson, and they do have, I think, the 3rd best running back in the entire conference coming back. So I got a lot of expectations for Central Florida, but I do think BYU can get that win in Orlando. And I think they should get that win in Orlando. I think they should split SMU and Wyoming. I think that they should get that win right out of the gates. I think that they've got to manufacture and sniff out one more win to get to that 4-win total so that they can make sure that they seal up 6 by the end of the season. And yeah, I think 6 is it. I put it at 6. If they get 7, it's like, man, that's a great season. That's a really solid season. If they get 8, it's like extend Kalani, extend him, because that's a gigantic jump from anything that people thought could be possible with the quarterbacks that they currently have. So I think expectations are to a point where you could be really happy if they find a way to 7 and 8.
You're a trenches guy, and obviously both sides weren't good enough at last season's performance. And there's talk of this year with a new line coach on the offensive side and some dudes and some guys returning that they'll have a better pass rush, all that. Sort of have a little bit of a skepticism about that and wait and see. How much do you buy in that they'll be effective on both sides?
Well, I always get myself in trouble on this, but this is where I'm just going to say I don't buy it and show it to me. Because if you're listing Banya as your starting edge, then I don't buy it because I watched him a lot and he didn't get there. And if you're telling me that Tyler Batty is going to go from getting pressures to getting sacks, I don't buy it. I love that kid. I have a lot of faith in him. I'd love to see him be the next double-digit sack guy at BYU, first since like 2012 or 11, since one of the Kafusis. I would love to see it, but I need to see it. I mean, I've got to see it. I've got, I think, a 3-year sample size at Tyler Batty, and I want to say high-end sack was 4, and I think that there might have been a couple of years of 2 or 2.5 in there. And I love him, and I do think he's a great DN. I think he's a fantastic run-stop DN, but you're asking me about pressures.
Yeah.
And so I just say, show it to me. Show it to me. To this entire defensive staff, it's like, let's go. You know, and here's the crazy thing, PK, and you know these guys really well. They go and hire Gary Anderson and Chad Kalaha to be behind the scenes as coordinators and analysts and the help staff. And it's like, I don't know if you could have 2 better guys that are working techniques and schemes and designs. And so if it doesn't happen, I know this, they had the coaching. They've got the scheme, because I've seen Gary Anderson's scheme and Jay Hill's defensive understanding, and I've seen those schemes work time and time again and be top 10 in the country in sacks. So then we got to go back to the drawing board and figure out where the hell this thing's broken. Because so what I'm saying, PK, prove it to me.
Yeah.
And until I see it proven, I'm not buying it.
Right.
Okay, now I listen to you talk, and I feel way less confident about them winning 7 games. I mean, the line of scrimmage, we started talking pass rush with Papinga, and he went right to, hey, our run defense has got to be better. Let's get that fixed first, and then we'll fix the pass.
Boy, that's the truth. I mean,
okay, you're just dragging everybody down, Hans. You're usually Mr. Positive.
Well, here's the thing, though, DJ. Like, the numbers don't lie from last year. And, you know, they're 109th in the country in run-stop defense. So, yeah, you got to get better. And I'll tell you, first and foremost, what I think that defensive front was one of the biggest issues on getting the run stop. Every time they ran any type of Rams or Lions, or they ran any type of hard slants or hard digs, they were getting washed, hit in the back, pushed to the sideline. Gaps were opening laterally. Like, it was really tough to watch, just some of the basic usage of your defensive front. So I do believe it's going to get better, DJ. Like, the run stop, I would put a lot of money that that's going to get better, even though you're going to be seeing a lot of the same stud running backs. I do believe that's going to get better, but it's got to get a lot better. But I also want to point out, too, that defensive backfield, the DBs, the safeties, I'm actually feeling a lot better about them. Feeling a lot better. Feeling better about having Harper out there. Feeling better about having Alfrey healthy. Feeling really good about Jacob Robinson, and I know that they've got 2 new guys, one transfer that they're really trying to work in. So I feel good about the back end. I was watching that Oklahoma game, and they pushed a drop 8 quite a bit, especially in the first quarter and a half. And I think that you got to find a way to maybe rush 4, get yourself really going into 5 against some of these bigger teams this year.
Hans, we appreciate the time as always. Thanks for joining us, and we'll expect more football at noon when you and Scotty G take over the airwaves.
I will tell you, DJ, every time this year it happens without fail. I kind of hit this optimistic peak for both Utah, BYU, and even Utah State. I get this bottle of optimism where I'm watching the film, and I believe these guys are going to return and do great things. And I mean, right out of the gates, man, we're going to get a good feel for this, and I just can't wait to get to kickoff. Thanks for your time, guys.
All right, there is Hans Olsen. A reminder, DJ and PK proudly presented by our title sponsor, Black Desert Resort, Utah's premier golf resort. Bill Bender on the future of college football, both this upcoming season and long-term, where it's going for the next 5 to 10 years. That's next. Stay with us. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. We're joined by Bill Bender, senior college football writer for the Sporting News. Bill, good morning.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me on.
You know, Bill, usually this time of year we're like, the games are going to come. We're not going to hear about all the politics. I feel like we're in for a 2-track season here as Florida State and Clemson try to do whatever they do. Is this stuff going to die down? Are we going to be totally focused on the games, or is it going to be 2 things happening at once?
I think more focused on the games, but anytime you have 2 schools with an outstanding lawsuit against the conference and Kyle Whittingham's comments about the next realignment. We love talking about realignment. Writers love talking about it. Fans love talking about it. I think the speculation is more fun than the action. It's kind of like free agency in pro sports. I think we like talking about it more than when it actually happens. But I'm excited about the games. I don't know about you. I'm ready for the games.
Yeah, we always are when it comes. It seems like it's the most anticipated start of a season because it actually starts a week or so earlier than the NFL. I'm wondering at the end of the season, how do you think the at-large bids are going to go? Because you look at these preseason All-American teams, and they're just dominated by the 2 big conferences.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to go to most of the big conferences. I think the Big 12 will be hard-pressed to get more than 2 teams on any given year. Same goes to the ACC, and the tricky part comes take the Big 12, for example. I think the Big 12 will be the most exciting conference in college football in terms of the race. I can't pick a winner. I think if the 3 of us, there's 16 teams, one of us would get 6 teams. If the 3 of us did like a Big 12 draft of who we think will win it, I think we'd all leave happy because we'd be like, maybe Oklahoma State can do it. Point being, to answer your question, yeah, the SEC and the Big 10 will get most of the at-large bids. And I think once they take all those, they're going to want more after that because of how big those conferences are.
Now, see, I want to talk football games, but you're leading me down the realignment political football path here because they'll take the G5 bid and they'll take whatever at-large bids would go to the ACC and the Big 12, and maybe they would take the automatic bids. It feels like the 14-team tournament's inevitable. It's 2 more games, and why should those 2 leagues get a bye? I don't think we're staying at 12. I think we're going to 14 for sure. Maybe we're going to 16.
I think 16 will happen too. And you said it right off the top. I'm an Ohio University alum, MAC guy. Went to a MAC school. Love the fact that on one end there is that small chance that they could get a playoff berth. Don't love the fact that it'll be scrutinized pretty heavily. And I think that's something to watch for the next couple of years is if we get a game like Oregon Liberty last year where Oregon won 45-6, and we get it 3 more years, the Big Ten, the SEC, even the Big 12 at that point be like, why are they getting a berth? I'm ready for that. I think that conversation is going to happen unless there's a big upset early in the college football playoff 12-team era. You're dead on. I mean, I hate that we're doing the political thing, right? But you're dead on with everything you just said.
Well, then, if we go along those lines, we're trying to build up the season. We're anticipating it in big games and all that stuff. I'm wondering if there will really be big games that much in terms of like Oregon and Ohio State, October 12th. I keep hearing people talk about it on the national. I got the satellite radio, and I listen to and from work to try to get some insight on what I can use on our shows. And if both those teams are going to get in, is it really that big of a game?
Right. And so I'm an NFL guy, too. I love watching the NFL. And I'm not one of those guys that's like college football's great, NFL's terrible. I like both. I like high school football. I watch my kid play junior high football. So any level's cool with me. I do think the college game is becoming more and more like the NFL game. And I've told my buddies that love it. I said, I got a lot of Buckeye buddy friends. I said, you're going to have to adjust the way you watch this stuff because you're going to play them twice. So which one matters more? The Oregon losing to Ohio State in the regular season, beats them in the Big Ten championship game, maybe beats them in a quarterfinal. How does that regular season game matter like it used to? It's not going to matter like it used to. That's one of the consequences of this new route we're going down.
How are they going to, speaking of conference title games, I assume they're going to be teams tied at 7-2 or 8-1, and they're not going to play it head-to-head. The conference title games, I know they make money, so they'll probably stay, but they don't seem to make any sense. They're a little like the conference basketball tournaments. They're there for fun, and it might be somebody's path to the big deal, but they're kind of in the way and unnecessary, except they make money.
I agree. Well, other than money and TV, right? And that's why they'll still be there. So I wondered that out loud and just kind of, I'm so glad I'm talking to you guys this morning because I've told that to my, people I work with, our friends, and I just get blank stares. Well, they're a conference championship game. Well, they don't have the value they used to other than a first-round bye. And to me, you've already got people saying this on social media. Well, why is the 12-team playoff not going to match the rankings in the AP pool? Of course it's not going to match because this is the system we set up. So I've always been a proponent of play out the regular season and then and I know it'd be controversial, but don't play conference championship games, put the 12 best teams in. If it's a committee, if it's a computer, if it's a combination of a committee and a computer, just put 12 teams in. I think once you're down to 13 and you're sitting there and I'm going to pick on a school here. I hate to pick on it. Oklahoma State was the first one that popped in my head. And they're 13. Well, sorry, but you're 13. There's 12 teams in this thing.
You talk about the Big 12 and have the potential to be exciting. How much do you factor in because there's a lot of unknowns? You got for the second year in a row, the conference is having a major facelift, and you wonder, will that cause maybe some unpredictability? When you say in terms of excitement, what are you basing it on there?
Quarterbacks and new teams and new venues. I mean, look who they brought in from the Pac-12. They brought in 4 teams. Utah, steady success. Arizona, coming off an unbelievable back half of last season. or they were putting up more than 40 points per game. They got maybe the best quarterback-receiver combo in the country. Colorado and everything that Deion brings, including two of the best players in college football in Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter. Arizona State, they need work. I mean, I can only sell them so much right now. And you throw that on top of the other Big 12 quarterbacks, both Kansas schools are ranked. West Virginia has a quarterback in Garrett Green that was really hot at the end of last year. Oklahoma State's good. That's 8 teams right there. 8 that I think could win the conference. And Texas Tech, they're going to be good. So I think the games are going to be fun. I think it's less stodgy than the SEC and the Big Ten. I think Brett Yormark has done an incredible job. I was one of those people that, I'll admit it, I wrote, this conference is done after Texas and Oklahoma left. What a job to keep that conference afloat by their commissioner. I think it's an amazing job.
The same 5 teams that were picked at the top of the preseason poll in the Big 12 were then the same 5 teams that were ranked in the coaches poll, the same 5 teams that were ranked in the media poll. One of those teams has to underachieve. Probably a couple of them will. And they won't finish ranked, and they won't be anywhere near the conference title game. And at the same time, last year, the preseason poll had West Virginia last, and they went 6-3 in the league. And Iowa State had the gambling issue, new quarterback, redshirt freshman. They got to 6-3 in the league after a terrible September. Who got missed on this year, you think?
I think Texas Tech could be really good with Taj Brooks, their defense, their schedule. You know, the thing about the Big 12 that even adds to it is a lot of the huge games are in September. And I'm not sure if that was by design, but when you look at the schedules, you're like, man, they better be ready to go because they're playing huge games early. You know, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, early on the schedule. Iowa State, I might have overlooked a little bit to answer your question. I think Rocco Beck had a really good year. Ames is a tough place to play for those who are unfamiliar with it, and they're steady. You just said it. Did they really give 6-3 in conference last year? That's incredible. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, that's for sure. Utah fans, for whatever it's worth, man, a lot of them think that they're just going to take this league by storm. Do you see a dominant team in this league, whether it's Utah or whoever it might be?
Well, one of the things with all of the realignment, and I've been pointing this out for every conference, one thing Utah has working in its favor is a distinct home field advantage. I think you got to win your home games. And that might sound like, well, no kidding, duh, but it is important that you not slip up at home because with Cam Rising, with that home field advantage, with the interior offensive and defensive lines, Utah has some strength they can rely on. And it's just you got to win some of those road games along the way. There are some tough places to play in every conference. The Big 12 no exception. It's like that first time going to Manhattan, or that first time I mentioned Ames, that first time going to Stillwater. Who deals with the unfamiliarity factor the best? And vice versa. You know, West Virginia's got to go out to Arizona State, things like that. I think I'm very interested to see how that works, not only in the Big 12, but in places like the SEC and the Big 10, where, call me crazy, but I heard too many coaches say this. I don't think they're as worried about the travel as the writers and the fans are. I think travel's travel. You're going to do that. I think they're worried about the venues more.
Obviously, when you look at Utah's schedule on paper, Oklahoma State and Arizona, those first 2 games you're talking about, the schedule is front-loaded. But when the Utes were in the Pac-12, there was this thing that got said and written over and over. How often the Pac-12 sent a good team, a potential playoff team, on the road on a Friday night, and they got beat. And it was partly because of the environment inside the stadium, turbocharged, prime time, the other team's peaking for it. You're making a team travel, and there's less preparation. And then they go to the Big 12, and the Utes have to go to UCF on a Friday at the end of the season and fly cross-country. Do you think UCF is going to be really good and capable of pulling that off? Because on paper it sets up it might be a problem, but do they have the team to back it up?
That's a game that gives you gray hair if you're a coach or a fan. It's going to be hard to go over there because you can't predict the humidity. You can predict that Gus Malzahn's going to have an offense that runs a ton of plays. They're going to have a veteran quarterback in KJ Jefferson. That is the definition. Everything you described, trap game. Friday night, charged up fans, had all day to get prepared. It'll be a tough game. Absolutely. And that's part of this that we're all going to have to adjust. If you want the game to feel like the NFL, it kind of does. I mean, I'm a Green Bay fan, and I mean, their opener's in Brazil. And I'm like, how do you even prepare for that? So I think travel, like I said, venues, and adjusting to that and making sure you take care of business at home. And I think at the end of the season, that's going to turn out to be right. The teams that finish unbeaten at home and maybe slip up once and on the road will be the teams in the playoff. And I do think one other side thought, I think it's going to be really hard for a team to go 16-0 in this environment. You're going to have 1 and 2 loss teams get the championship games. It's going to be fun.
How about a BYU? You think they can knock off somebody, particularly at home?
Right. I mean, they've got a tough schedule as well. And another thing when you come into a conference, if you look at Houston, BYU, Cincinnati, and UCF, they struggled making that adjustment to the Big 12 last year. Now, granted, Texas and Oklahoma didn't make that adjustment easier, but again, like it was new. It was I kind of like for those that I used to play a lot of video games on like Nintendo. This is old school, but when you got up to that next level, it got harder. And I think it's going to be harder for a few years for BYU to win in this conference. Maybe a little less because of the mix of teams now, but that's what happens when you work your way up. Utah's done it the right way, by the way. How many? You guys know this. They've played in how many conferences? Mountain West, Pac-12, Big 12. I think they just continue to incrementally build up to the moment. And I'm not sure a program other than maybe TCU has done it better over the last 25 years to make its way up the college football ranks.
Yeah, in 30 years that we've both been in the market here, you left out the WAC. That'd be the 4th league we saw them in.
I thought of the WAC. I just didn't want to say it out loud and be wrong.
Yep. WAC to Mountain West to Pac-12 to Big 12 to whatever comes next. Something is coming next. There are a handful of athletes who are getting the preseason run. It's Brant Keithy here. Obviously, Oklahoma State's got the most heralded running back in the country. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Do you see other big-time difference-making players that are on the radar out there? Or do you just think they'll emerge and we'll figure it out when we see the highlights, but there's no way to know now?
Right. Well, we did our All-American team yesterday, and that's always a fun exercise for me. It's really hard to pick receivers. It's really hard to pick the defensive backs. You always have a couple players. I think a guy he's not off the radar to me, but if you watch Jason Henderson at Old Dominion, he reminds me of Luke Kuechly. He's an absolute tackle machine. He was on our first team All-American. People said, why is there an Old Dominion guy on there? I was like, watch him play for 10 minutes. And I love guys like that are able to make our team. It's obviously loaded with Big Ten and SEC guys. There are like 8 Ohio State guys on our team. One other side thought, I mean, Notre Dame has a lot of preseason guys on our All-Americans on our preseason list. And one thing about Notre Dame in this new environment as well is if you are a Big 12 fan or an ACC fan or any conference fan, you're rooting for Notre Dame to lose.
Yep.
Because if you want one of those at-large bids, I think there's going to be a universal, we need the Irish to lose. And they're going to be pretty good this year.
Bill, you got the Ohio background sitting there in Columbus. And so you got Ken Griffey right there, but yet on International Left-Handers Day, you chose to put Tony Gwynn. And I love Tony Gwynn, but I'm thinking, what are you doing, man? You got Griffey, you got Morgan, you got some guys in your backyard.
He just recognizes greatness, and he just can't lie.
And he was great, but you got other locals. I mean, I would think the local people would run you out of town. You got to go with Junior.
Now, I have a funny story because of Tony Gwynn. I'm a Padres fan to this day. I mean, I was a lefty growing up, and he was in the All-Star game every day. He did it with class. You see the Twitter threads now of his ridiculous statistics on hitting the ball. I don't think there's ever been a better contact hitter in my life. I do get into the Pete Rose, Tony Gwynn argument quite a bit up here in Ohio with my buddies, but it's always a fun one. But yeah, I'm a Padres fan to this day, even with all those crazy changes. You want to talk about changes? How many ugly uniforms have they had over the years, and I still like them.
I grew up in San Diego County, and I can't believe that they found a heart and a soul here after the All-Star break. A year and a half of huge payrolls and 500 records. This has been awesome. Just wake up every morning, and if they go to – I went to bed the other night. They were up 2-0. Woke up, and they won. Unbelievable.
Yeah, exactly. See, I have to stay up a little bit later to watch them sometimes, but still a Padres fan at heart. And, if you look at their year-by-year record against the Reds, which I have on my computer because I have my buddies that root for the Reds, it's incredible how they have the Reds number.
Well, we got to have something. Haven't had enough playoff berth. So, Bill, we appreciate the time. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, no problem, guys. Have a great day.
There's Bill Bender, Sporting News writer on college football. When we come back, what is trending next?
It's time to get your morning started with the news you need to know. News update. This is what's trending with DJ and PK. Hashtag NFL.
I want to vomit every time I hear number one receiver, to be honest with you. It drives me crazy. That's something that you guys talk about. I feel like we got a bunch of them. So I think the beauty of them is they're all capable of doing many things, which gives us a lot of versatility from an offensive perspective in terms of how we use these guys and deploy their talents.
That's Packers coach Matt LaFleur. Clearly not a fan of number one wide receivers.
Well, that's ridiculous.
Because
by definition, you can only have one. Doesn't he understand the English language?
The guy who catches the most passes.
This is ridiculous.
And the most yards. Cooper Kupp is the Rams' number one wide receiver.
He has to be number one.
Right. Because he led the league in catches.
Regardless of where he stacks up league-wise, Jordan Love is the number one quarterback. Is he not a fan of the number one quarterback?
I didn't say that.
Is he not a fan of the number one right guard? Is he not a fan of the number one punter?
He's not a fan of the number one wide receiver, then becoming a diva, holding out.
Well, that's another story. That's back in my day, Drew Pearson didn't do that, let me tell you.
Nice. Drew Pearson, good pull.
Well, I figured keep in line with the bands of the day.
Famous for
catching passes.
The very first Hail Mary.
Full of grace, the Lord be with thee. Blessed art thou.
Roger Staubach. Deep in Minnesota.
I am steeped in Catholicism, my friend. And I don't apologize for it.
8 years of Catholic school.
And 47 years of living it.
Loving every minute of it. Kind of rhymed the way you said that. Philadelphia Eagles beat the Patriots. Week 2 of the NFL preseason is underway. That's good news because that means we're closer to the regular season. Dallas Cowboy quarterback Dak Prescott expressing optimism about his ongoing contract negotiations with the team. Quote, I'm not putting that much thought into hoping it gets done now, hoping it gets done in a couple weeks during the season, whenever it happens. I just know conversations are on the right way. A little positivity there.
Yeah, you win. He's the quarterback. He can't be going public with that. That just disrupts the team before it even starts.
So he's trying to tamp it down.
I think as the QB number one, I don't know if you can call him that, if that's acceptable to LaFleur.
Well, it might make Matt LaFleur vomit, but you can't call him that. I think
as the quarterback, you have to do that.
It's your job as a leader.
I believe it is.
Can't make a mess of it, and you're going to make more than all these other guys combined. So, well, that's not true, not all these guys combined, but you're going to make way more than all these other guys. So, your money will come, and certainly his will. If he doesn't get it from the Cowboys, somebody will pay him later. So, don't make it a big deal.
Not bad for a fourth-round pick.
Go win. Chargers coach Jim Harbaugh told reporters that Colin Kaepernick's hopes of joining him in L.A. will not happen until next year at the earliest. If it does happen, it'll be as a member of the coaching staff, not as a player and a quarterback on the roster. Harbaugh praised Kaepernick's football mind, saying, I thought that for a long time. Just respect that for the football mind he has, a football man that he is.
Okay. He wants him to be a coach. He wants him to be a coach. Yep. Who cares?
There was a story out there about maybe Kaepernick could join a team and that he was willing to go in and be on a scout team and do that, but it hasn't led to anything yet.
Well, he's getting removed from a number of years.
He's 36 now.
Is he 36 already?
Yeah, can you believe that?
Actually, he's 37.
Actually, he's 37. Man, the time goes fast. Look how fast it just went in that second.
Man, the year just flew by. That was unbelievable.
Oh, man, I always thought if he was good enough, he should be on a team.
Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department and union officials said they object to NFL access policies to certain areas of Allegiant Stadium, and the union has urged its officers to not work Raider home games after this weekend if the new arrangement remains in place. The NFL is using facial recognition technology this season for those credentialed for games, including for players, media, and vendors.
What's up with that? I mean, I have no idea what this is about.
The Vegas Police Protective Association, with the backing of the department, said they're concerned such technology compromises the officer's privacy.
Again, I have no idea what that's about.
DJ and PK.
Hashtag college football.
Will Howard will start in the first game against Akron. He is our starting quarterback. I think that Chip has done a great job of rolling the quarterbacks from the first day of spring all the way to now. I think we're 12 or 13 practices in here, so you're talking almost 27, 28 practices. And when you take the aggregate of all the numbers, Will graded out significantly ahead of the other guys.
That's Ryan Day, Ohio State football coach. Will Howard is the Buckeye starter. He beat out former Corner Canyon quarterback Devin Brown. He's a Kansas State transfer who made his way to Ohio State. And now, see if he can win the Big Ten for the Buckeyes and presumably get them into the 12-team playoff.
Let's see. Their first game is against Akron. Their second game is against Western Michigan. Their third game is against Marshall.
WWW.
So finally, and I'm looking at their schedule, September 28th, Michigan State, which is rebuilding with Jonathan Smith, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
What a waste of time. So whoever wins the job is certainly going to look good the first 3 games, unless he gets hurt, obviously. They're not going to be challenged there.
The College Football Playoff Selection Committee will no longer use conference championships as one of its tiebreaker because the new 12-team format guarantees bids for the 5 highest-ranked conference winners. When the commissioners decided upon the 12-team format for this fall, they also agreed to place an emphasis on the importance of winning a conference title. Because it's embedded in the model, that eliminated any need to use a conference title as a tiebreaker when comparing similar teams. So how will ties be broken? Both 4 conference championship games and then when they're trying to separate those last 1, 2, 3 teams out.
Well, that would be if you lose, right? Not if you win.
The winners are locked in, and that's what they use. It'll be interesting to see if they do emphasize losing a championship game. Hey, you got there. You're better than the team that didn't.
Well, I think they will. I don't understand that. You consider the first game, the last game, and every game in between. What's the difference?
Well, the fact that I guess it'll be uneven, that some teams will have a championship game on their resume and others will not.
Because they had a better season. The only one who doesn't have one is Notre Dame. That doesn't make any sense.
Maybe they had a better season. Maybe they had the same conference record and there was a tiebreaker, but maybe someone has a better non-conference record because like Ohio State didn't play anybody and somebody else tested themselves.
What are you pointing at?
Your phone, because that was where Ohio State's schedule was, because you were looking at it on your phone. And nobody at home or in their car could see that, but thanks for pointing that out. Yes, I did point at your phone. You love debates? You love college football? I think we are guaranteed vigorous college football debates when we get to the conference championship games and we see some of these ties broken. And if they played head-to-head, then that simplifies it. But in a lot of cases, they may not have, so.
So you had a better season, but I got to the final and you didn't. Okay.
Mm-hmm. DJ and PK.
Hashtag NBA.
Well, the full 2024-2025 schedule is out. The Celtics will celebrate their latest NBA title. Opening night. The rings, the banner, the pageantry, and then a game with the New York Knicks at TD Garden to kick it off. When you were a kid, is that the most juice for a Knicks game? Was it the Celtics? The Sixers? The Lakers? Living on this side of the country, Knicks, Celtics, it seems pretty juicy. I get why the NBA would do that.
Yeah, I mean, certainly that was big. Philly. When for me personally, it was Philadelphia at the end of the state. When you're a kid, 5 hours away, seems like a long ways away. Hadn't been there, eventually got there. I'd been to Philly many times. So personally for me, it was the Sixers and what they had going on there. And they had a lot of good teams. But the Lakers, sure, with those guys that they had when I was very, very young. They played in the finals. I saw this, and they're gonna force feed us the Lakers and the Warriors. The Lakers are 39 times on national TV.
Yeah.
Right. That
you're gonna
battle
get those
for
teams
the play-in is just
nonstop,
awesome.
and the odds of them being 7, 8, 9, 10 are really good.
Yeah.
For both those clubs.
I mean, I get why they do it, but it turns me off.
People want to see Curry and LeBron.
I would just rather see the best. And right now, their teams are not the best. They're phenomenal individual players.
But the Thunder, the Nuggets, the Timberwolves.
Yeah, and is there a surprise team out there, whoever that might be this year? Usually there's a team or two that's, I don't want to say sneaks up, but does maybe a little bit better than expected. But, I get where they're coming from. You're trying to please the masses, not the hardcore at the pro level.
The Jazz are going to open with the Memphis Grizzlies on October 23rd. 15 back-to-backs. And as we will get into here shortly, there's a long homestand and there's a long road trip. A little unusual, but in a year with not a lot of expectations for a lot of wins, I don't know. Doesn't stress me out too much. Maybe matters more to other people.
A schedule? Why would a schedule stress you out?
Oh, the fact that they're home. It's a disadvantage. You got to be on the road for so long and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, are they going to win half their games anyway? Doesn't seem like it.
Once the postseason starts,
now that will matter.
Everyone is 0-0.
If you're fortunate enough to get to the postseason. All right, more on that coming up. David Locke is going to join us at 8:05. We'll talk with him about that. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, The Zone.
Hashtag Major League Baseball.
0-1. Grounded off the foot of Hudson. Coming home is Contreras to score. The Dodgers at least get an out as it was hit to Rojas. Hoskins drives in a run, his 60th RBI of the season, and it's a 2-run lead for the Brewers.
McRae after Casale's fly ball out. McRae swings and he belts one. Deep right center field. Way back there. Harris at the warning track at the wall. Goodbye! The first Major League home run for Grant McRae into the Atlanta bullpen. What a moment for the rookie.
Swung on, hit in the air, right center field on the run. Call, he will lay out, it's off his glove. Wilson's around first, he's headed for second, and he's got the cycle. Weston Wilson is hit for the cycle tonight for the Phillies.
The Phillies hammer the Nationals 13-3, the final score, and Weston Wilson, the rookie, becomes the first player in Philly history to hit for the cycle. 125 years of baseball, and they finally get it done. It's kind of an oddity right there. I don't know there's any more than that.
Oh, most definitely an oddity.
How did they go that long without somebody hitting for the cycle at some point?
You think, well, the Bull was really good, but he was slow, so would have had time. Wouldn't have had time to get to the triple. You know what I mean?
The Bull.
Greg
Luzinski lumbering into third base. Yes, an unlikely sight. Gives me something to do during the break. I'll look up Greg Luzinski, career triples.
But then, you'd have to wonder about Gary Maddox because, he was sleek. He's able to run. Dale Unser coming off the bench. He might have gapped one. But two, you wonder, in those days, was it harder to hit triples because of the playing surface? The ball would skip, and so would it get to the wall quicker and then bounce back to the fielders quicker? Whereas on grass, it may linger a little bit to get there, giving the base runner more time to get around the bases.
All questions for Philly fans to ponder.
Yeah.
Or they can just celebrate the fact that they're more than 20 games over 500. They got a good team, and this could be a very exciting postseason for them if things work out the right way.
They've been in contention since day one.
Yep. And they have the best record in the National League because the Dodgers lost last night, so the Phillies stepped past them by a half game, for whatever that matters. Brewers beat the Dodgers 6-4. Dodgers division lead over the Diamondbacks and the Padres down to 2 games. Those 2 teams were off. Phillies are cruising 7 games in front of the Braves. Also, Javier Baez, 2-run homer. Detroit beats Seattle 2-1. The Mariners now 3 games behind the red-hot Astros in the American League West. Gunnar Henderson, home run number 31. Where'd you rank him among major league sluggers? I mean, Judge, Soto,
I don't think of him as a
Ohtani.
slugger. I think of him as an all-around great ball player who is on the come. I think he's barely scratching the surface.
Which is awesome because he's got 31 home runs.
I mean, when you talk about shortstops, you don't necessarily think of them as sluggers because the position that they play defensively is virtually just as important as what they do at the plate. But he certainly is a star in his own right, and he will continue to be a bigger star as he grows up, so to speak, in his big league career.
In those highlights, you heard the Braves beating the Giants. You heard the Giants beating the Braves. Giants shut them out 6-0, get back to 500. 500, mid-August, still in the wild card race, still have hope.
Well, certainly
it could happen.
The second wild card and all that.
Yeah, they're 3.5 games out of the last wild card. 3.5 games behind the Braves, so that's a big win for them. 2-game swing there.
Most definitely.
And the Mets wasted opportunity, losing to the Athletics at home 7-6. Mets are 2 games out of that last wild card and missed a chance to move within a game. All you had to do was beat the lowly Athletics. All right, Major League Baseball mulling a new set of rules requiring starters to go at least 6 innings every time they take the mound, with exception if the pitcher goes over 100 pitches, gives up 4 or more earned runs, or if they're injured while on the mound, which means that they would have to go on the injured list to avoid manipulating that rule. Trying to make the starting pitcher a celebrity again instead of some 4-inning anonymous person who's
4
in and out.
They got 1.
3, yeah. Well, the bullpen games too, right? This would
the
eliminate
opener, not the
bullpen.
starter. What they used to call what they call the starter has been morphed into the opener in some cases. It puts a premium on starting pitching for sure.
When a team gets caught short and they have a lot of injuries or whatever, we just see somebody out there and they just get battered for 6 innings. And see more games with 10, 15, or 20 innings.
No, because if you get 4 earned runs, you take him out. So he wouldn't be battered. He'd be sitting out.
Sitting out. The 4 runs would save him.
Yeah.
You like this? Well, let's go the way. I mean, they did the pitch clock. There's a lot of talk, but when it debuted, it worked.
I think it would be the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Okay. Seems a little overstated. We'll get to this later in the show. Steve Hill, president and CEO of the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, said he was optimistic 3 key documents needed to begin construction on a new stadium for the Athletics would be approved December 5th. They had a meeting about it yesterday, and his quote was, "We're rounding third and heading for home."
Yeah, but that ball was out in right field to Dave Parker, and we know what kind of cannon he has.
Throw him out at the plate?
Yes.
Or at third? No triples for you?
No, he's heading home.
Parker can't throw out Lazinski, right? They were both Pirates.
Heading for home. The triple has already been established.
Okay.
Assuming the base runner was also the batter.
Don't trip.
It could be Herb Washington, a designated runner for the A's.
Look at you. You doing this more for you or more for me? Ball players of the 70s and 80s.
I am here to serve you, to make sure you're happy.
All right.
You're the star. You're the one who has to be taken care of. My employment is still show to show.
Oh, jeez. Yuck. That was a good face.
That's the way I approach each and every segment.
Well, it's worked for you so far, so I guess if that's
you
what
were the star
do,
back in the day. I was just a hanger-on.
This is important for 2 reasons. Number 1, baseball in Vegas. A lot of Utahns are down in Vegas. Give you a chance to see a game, make it closer and more convenient. And For baseball here in Salt Lake, well, no expansion until the Rays and the Athletic Stadium situations are taken care of. We've heard that for a long time. This would take care of the Athletic Stadium situation. So we'll see if they can have it all done and approved December 5th and break ground and start moving steel and moving dirt. Good news and bad news. Bad news for Milwaukee Brewers star Christian Yelich. He's going to miss the rest of the season as he's set to undergo back surgery. The 2018 NL MVP was having a resurgent season. He was hitting over 300. His on-base percentage was over 400, but he's done for the year.
Yeah, it's a blow.
Cubs Hall of Famer Ryne Sandberg announced he's cancer-free after undergoing treatment for what he said was metastatic prostate cancer. 7 months of treatment. Metastatic?
Yeah.
Yeah, I put too many S's in there. Metastatic prostate cancer.
Rhino was my wife's favorite player growing up.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Sang in basement for good Cubby teams.
Yeah, she had a crush on him. And there were no Diamondbacks, so you had the WGN and the TBS. So you had the Braves and the Cubs in the Phoenix area. And I watched a lot of Cubs baseball, especially with my mother. In the summers when it was so blazing hot and I was a kid.
Yep.
11 o'clock it would start.
Put the game on in the heat of the day.
Fire up the grill, make myself a hot dog.
I had a kid.
Good times.
Hot Takes or Toast is brought to you by Siegfried and Jensen.
That's
Excuse me, that's next. What is Trending is brought to you by Shamrock Plumbing. There's no job too big or too small. Get the personal touch with Shamrock Plumbing.
Your problem is you always get ahead of yourself.
Hot Takes or Toast is coming up. David Locke at 8 o'clock. Brett Siegel, NBA reporter for Clutch Points at 9:05. We were talking yesterday. PK saw the story where he said the Jazz trying to figure out what they do. The most head-scratchingest team in the NBA. We'll talk with Brett about that.
Scratchiest?
Head-scratchingest. Kurt Schmid, Chief Soccer Officer for Real Salt Lake at 8:30 on all their moves at the summer transfer window. 9 games left before the playoffs start. Major changes. We'll talk with Kurt at 8:30. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. Hot Takes or Toast is brought to you by Siegfried and Jensen with 30 years of serving Utah. Question of the morning. And people embraced it. Major League Baseball considering a rule requiring starting pitchers to go a minimum of 6 innings. They can leave after 100 pitches, allowing 4 earned runs or an injury. Do you like it? And Kevin says, no, I don't. This is football season.
Okay, well then in April.
Steve, in a word, no. Janae, no, there's too many injuries as it is. Even the hitters want the sticky stuff allowed to give the pitchers more control of the ball and fewer injuries.
What does that have anything to do with?
I don't know. I did not understand. I don't think the injuries is because the ball is slick. I think it's because they're throwing breaking stuff at 100 miles an hour since they were 12.
See, that's the thing that reading up on it yesterday is they were talking about now these guys just come in and throw as hard as they possibly can, knowing that their innings are going to be limited, their number of pitches are going to be limited. And so from that perspective, then, you'll have to be more like a Greg Maddux and a Tom Glavine, 2 Hall of Famers that could throw hard enough but didn't overwhelm you with velocity, but their pinpoint control and their accuracy and where they wanted their pitches, they were considered true pitchers rather than just hardball chuckers, and that it would change the game. Do we want the game fundamentally changed? Now, you want any change if it's for better across the board. You name anything, if there's some type of change out there that makes whatever you're doing better in any field, well, you're going to go for it, right?
Jeffrey says stop messing with the rules, and I would just say the NFL messes with the rules constantly. People love it, and I think it's largely, if not, I don't know if it's ever unanimously, but it's pretty close. They keep making the game better.
But I don't think the public notices the rule changes.
Do you think the public notices the pitch clock now? Or do you think they're just watching baseball?
I think they notice it, yes.
I think they notice the game moves more quickly.
Right.
But I don't know
it
if
didn't change the fundamental nature of the game.
Right.
It just eliminated, in a sport that is slower, obviously, it eliminated more downtime.
Yeah.
You don't need to see the pitcher throw over to first base 4 times.
You really don't.
Right. And
nobody
so that
says
was like,
at the end of the inning.
That was like, why didn't we do this decades ago?
Yeah.
It's so stupid, and you don't want to see that. And the constant changing of pitching. You face one batter.
Yeah, TJ says they already made a 3-batter rule. Leave it as is.
And they did, with the exception of if you close out the inning. So you still could face the batter if you close out the inning. And the disadvantage, because they have the stats that the left-handed pitcher versus the right-handed batter, his numbers are going to be higher for both the batter and the hitter. So that's going to lead to more offense. And
both the batter and the hitter?
The pitcher, I meant.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. The pitcher's numbers are going to go down. The batter's numbers are going to go up. So the numbers for both
There's
are going to change.
statistical evidence, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's why they do it in the first place. Well, if he has to stay in, if you want to get him, he faces a left-hander, faces a left-handed batter, and that guy gets a hit, and then you're obligated to face 2 more batters, or unless it's the third out, then you can go. But the point of it leads to more offense, and it doesn't constantly slow down the game. Because watching a reliever come in, thankfully they jog now instead of walk. And who's that one guy? One guy who played for the Padres for a while. He used to sprint in. He was a reliever. And when they were having the All-Star game, and I remember it was in Phoenix, and he sprinted in from the left field bullpen, and as he got to the mound, he slid. He was a character, and I think he was on the Padres at that time. I remember watching it. And
I can see a guy doing it, but I can't remember who it is.
Molina was the catcher for the NL, and he just breaks out into like, what are you doing? It was funny. But then he gets to throw, 10 warm-ups when he just threw 25, 30, 40, 50.
Heath Bell runs and slides to the mound at the 2011 All-Star game.
Yeah, it was funny. Right. It was a feet first slide. It wasn't a pop-up. It wasn't like Trey Tenner, who looks like he's gliding on glass or ice or something with that cool slide of his. But he's a big burly dude who comes running in and does a slide. They should have now too. Have them train in the off season as gymnasts and do front flips and cartwheels and stuff. Or promote in an Olympic season. Have them promote the gymnasts, and the gymnasts can run with them doing front flips the whole way. Right? That'd be awesome. So these rules, if they're designed to make the game better, then yes, do it.
Josh likes it. Most people are complaining, but Josh likes it. He says the constant pitching changes are the most boring part of baseball.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
I think that the other thing we're missing, although you're right, nobody went there. Man, we didn't see enough pitching changes tonight, said no one ever. Is the starting pitchers used to be celebrities. It's a big deal, and they sold tickets. And the number of players who do that.
Enough.
Yeah, if they were good enough. But the number of players who do that, it just seems like it's way down.
I mean, how many teams had 4 or 5 guys, though? I got to see that guy. When what's his face? Shohei was pitching, and he'll be pitching again. Mm-hmm. But in the beginning, sure, the numbers spike. This Skinnis kid from Pittsburgh, numbers spike. I just don't know if there were ever that many when I was a kid growing up. Dwight Gooden. Who is this kid? Fernando went nuts in Los Angeles when he broke in.
They had Fernando and Oral Hershiser, but you're right. The third and fourth starting pitchers don't usually sell the tickets.
Right. So I don't know that those guys, and ace is still the most valuable thing you can have in baseball, I believe. Because I think you win, there's 3 components to winning. You must have elite defense, you must have good to great pitching, and that includes bullpen, and then you have to have timely hitting. And if you have those 3, a la the Giants last decade, you walk away with 3 World Series titles. 3.
Nice.
Yes.
In 5 years.
Yes.
Those were the good old days.
I mean, they were just yesterday, metaphorically, but right. That was the best time in franchise history going back to New York, right? Because they were getting beat by the Yankees and all that. But they come out there, and it took a good long while for them to win it, and then Bochy manipulated. I think that the 3-batter rule, they might as well call it the Bruce Bochy rule. Because him and his worn-down body as a catcher took him 15 minutes to get to the mound. And then it took him another 3 minutes to lift up his arm to tell you which one he wanted.
And we still had to wait for him to get back to the dugout.
Yeah.
At least the pitcher could warm up while that was going on.
The good thing in home games, it's a compact ballpark, so they didn't have to go as far.
Imagine him managing in Oakland with all that foul territory.
Yeah, jeez. Yeah, and take him. You can get a hot dog and one of those ice creams in the baseball cups upside down.
Nice.
You'd have enough time. So if it's designed, not just, I think they've done what they needed to do to speed it up. Either you're going to like the game or you're not, right?
But they've turned 3:15 into 2 hours and 45
and
minutes,
that's great.
and that's better.
So they've done that. I wouldn't make this rule to speed up the game, is what I'm saying. If you believe it can improve the game, if it can put the art back in pitching, and it forces teams to make sure they have enough pitching.
It forces teams to leave pitchers in to go through a lineup a third time, and that does seem to be a line in the sand a lot of nights for a lot of starting pitchers. They don't want them to face the third time. If you're going to pitch the fifth and the sixth inning, you're probably going through the order of the third. I mean, if you're totally dominating, you don't have to worry about it so much. But a couple guys left on, a couple runs in, yeah, you're going through the order a third time.
All right, let's compromise. Go 5. Ready, break.
I think there's a reason they went 6.
Because they wanted at least get a Little League complete game?
That's the Little League complete game. The LLCG.
I would like to try it. When they come up with these rules across sports,
you usually lean towards the let's give it a shot.
Yeah. And then if it doesn't work, change it.
You can repeal it.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Right. There might be some loophole. Like the Jazz were notorious for fouling a guy at half court if there was a numbers disadvantage. And that's not really
I'm not here to watch free throws. I'm here to watch fast breaks.
It's not the spirit of the game. So then they figured out, change it. So somebody figures out a loophole. Well, then they got to look at it and see about that, right?
And it made the game better.
Yeah.
Let's have more fast breaks, more transition.
Right. I don't want to see, particularly if it's somebody who isn't going to come close to be worried about being fouled out. And it's usually the backcourt players because they're at that's where they would be spatial-wise.
You brought this up a few times, and I always see Joe Ingles fouling at midcourt.
Exactly.
He was the master at it. He was only going to have 3 fouls anyway.
Right.
He was never anywhere near fouling out.
Right. So they tried to manipulate the rules and the hack-a-shack. I don't want to see that. I want to see these sleek,
you don't want to see
Jaguar-like athletes being able to run up and down, because they're fast and they can move.
Right. They're the best all-around athletes.
I believe they are,
Let the best all-around athletes be athletic.
Right.
Don't blow a whistle and have them walk to the free throw line. That's not what we're here for.
Right. I can remember when we used to be able to sit down low, and I'm working for the Watchdog, and I think it might have been Stockton's first game back that one year when he had the surgery the year after the first final, I can't remember who they were playing. Maybe it wasn't, but I can just remember Grant Hill just getting the rebound, and the rebound kind of got to the free throw line. He gets the rebound and just takes off, right? Obviously, he was besieged by injury, but when he was healthy, and just watching him just glide down so under control, unbelievable athleticism, the ability to dribble the ball and move fast, and then just glide in for the layup. It was poetic. And that's what I want to see. I don't want to see some dude come and tap him at half court. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean.
Yeah.
Difference between a bunch of high school hacks like ourselves and elite professional athletes.
Right. It's like he's gliding on air. And I don't even think he dunked it. I don't need the dunk. The slam dunk in the face and all that is cool, and everybody goes nuts, yada, yada, and the bench jumps up. I get all that. But this was just on a play, and I remember I was sitting next to Brad Rock, and I remember looking at him, man, that is something special right there, man. That's why I'm here. That's why I like that product that's right in front of me. That was so cool. It wasn't when Stockton came back, because I think it was the Pacers that they played, because I think Dale Davis nailed Stockton, and then they had gauze sticking up his nose.
I don't remember Dale Davis, but I do remember the gauze. Can you believe that, mate? He hated sitting out every single minute of every one of those games. He's not coming out because he has a bloody nose. Yeah. It's not happening.
Right.
But he had gauze in his nose. Yeah, I don't think he cares.
It wasn't aesthetically pleasing, but in a way,
it was bizarrely hilarious.
Defined Stockton and who he was. Yeah. His toughness that he showed for a little dude setting a pick and getting run over.
Yeah. Doc, put some gauze in it and let's go.
Yeah, yeah. So make these changes. I'm for the advancements of sports, and if they're not advancements, then you can rechange them again.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. David Locke, radio voice of the Jazz at 8 o'clock. Kurt Schmid, chief soccer officer for RSL, on all the changes at 8:30. And Brett Siegel, NBA reporter. What exactly is the Jazz plan? He is scratching his head. 9 o'clock, he joins us. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I present...
This is JJ and Alex.
6 SEC teams against 6 Big Ten teams, which I know is not possible. I'm just saying, if that were... Right. If that were the case, that actually would probably be the most intriguing from a TV interest standpoint. And I think that the G5 invite becomes like, isn't that cute? Well, we've always liked these storylines. Utah 2004 and 2008. Boise State being the BCS Busters. That's so fun for you guys. Just don't be a part of our national championship. Get the hell out of here.
Just don't win that game.
Just don't show up for
that.
that.
Don't win that 5-12 game.
Yeah, if you win your first round game, then you know what you have to do. You have to lose in that second round at the very least.
Catch JJ and Alex afternoons from 3 to 6. Presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The band of the day today, Post Malone. His new album, F1 Trillion, debuting, and it's brought to you by Live Nation for all the live concerts and events in 2024. Check out livenation.com.
Is today literally the debut?
Yeah, today's the debut.
Yeah, I mean, this has been talked about for a while.
I had it pre-ordered and it downloaded overnight for me. So.
And the early returns?
Awesome. Nailed it.
This is his second foray, although it's his first album, but he put out a tune with Morgan Wallen that's pretty good.
Yeah, we played that earlier. We played that earlier this morning.
Yes,
he's got Brad Paisley.
Yeah,
he's got all kinds of country artists. Who Dolly Parton did a collab on this with him. So this one's pretty cool. Luke Combs is on this one that we're playing right now.
Luke Combs. Yeah, I'm interested to hear his complete and total commitment to country. I mean, if you don't get on board, you're getting run over.
There it is.
I mean, I can tell you, I'm going to have some breaking news here.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, you know it. Spencer Fano's favorite, if he had one concert to go to, the offensive tackle for University of Utah, I'm pretty sure he'll say Billy Currington. Now, Sneaky started the week, have never heard of Billy Currington. Now he knows.
He's heard a lot of Billy Currington.
Yes.
I got a line of Billy fans off to my left that just stretch to the horizon.
Spencer Fano, I know for a fact that if he had one concert to go to, it'd be Billy Currington. And I let him know. That's how country boys roll.
Spencer Fano is full of life. He is a good time.
All Billy Currington fans are. We are.
Okay. If you say so.
My sister is a Billy Currington freak.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, has seen him like 5 times.
Oh, okay. How far has she traveled to see him?
I'd have to MapQuest the venues in Phoenix.
Oh, they're all in Arizona?
No.
I didn't know if she went over to San Diego, LA to beat the heat in the summer and see a show.
What do you know about my family and what are they?
Gamblers, Vegas.
Bingo. So she saw him in Nevada.
Okay.
Or as East Coasters would say, Nevada.
So wrong.
And when they watch the NBA, they're watching basketball.
So wrong.
So I have only seen Billy Currington once, and that was
Do you
last week.
say portrait or portrait?
Portrait.
Okay, good. My wife grew up in suburban D.C., Virginia, but suburban D.C., and she says portrait. And every time I look at her, that's how we pronounce it. It's portrait. It's P-O-R, portrait.
Right, but most of my
Portrait.
influences now are going to be taken over by the West.
Thank goodness.
Except my attitude.
Thank goodness.
I still have the East Coast attitude. That'll never leave.
At times.
But the pronunciations and all the preferences like that are going to be West.
Yeah, your pizza choices, your hot dog choices, your food choices.
Yeah, I'm the lone wolf in the family.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, because I moved out when I was 14. They moved out 20s and 40s because my sisters are older than me, and obviously my parents were older than me. No, I'm the only one who went to high school in Arizona.
Utah Jazz schedule is out. There's a 7-game road trip. There's an 8-game homestand. We cool with the funky schedules for the sake of sharing the Delta Center with an NHL team.
Well, that's what I assume the reason is. Now they have more dates they have to account for, right?
I assumed that would be it. I haven't heard anything, but it makes sense.
It's sort of irrelevant this year because they're not expected to contend
They're
anyway.
not chasing anything, so there's a little scheduled disadvantage. But at some point, they ought to be good.
They're going to contend.
And at some point, will that provide some type of disadvantage? But as much as the regular season seems to have been discounted and not matter, and teams don't care about winning 2 or 3 more games to move up a spot or two in the seedings.
It's a total irregardless because for years the Spurs and the rodeo and all that, and they have won 5 titles.
Yep. And they had the rodeo road trip.
So, and we always heard about it.
Right. And they'd go out for 6 games before the All-Star break, and then they go out for 5 or 6 games after the All-Star break. And, of course, that breaks several days. So
yeah, and they can bounce back and forth with the charter depending on how many days they had off and
where they were going.
In the country.
Right.
Yeah, and they managed to
win 5 championships.
Yeah.
So an annoyance, sure.
I'd be more concerned about getting players the caliber of Robinson and Duncan and Ginobili and Parker and the bench guys that they had and all that they needed to win titles.
If you have those guys,
they were pretty good.
Stay out on the road for a while.
Yeah. So I think that's far more important. 15 back-to-backs, how does that relate to anybody else?
It's tied for the most in the league.
Yeah. So
they brought that down because 20 used to be the number.
Dump on the Jazz.
They're like 4 or 5 teams all have 15.
But I think that if you have an arena issue, maybe that leads to more. But they had to obviously had Beck billionaire and knew that, and his people knew that when they bought the team.
But the Lakers and the Clippers and the Kings were all in one arena. Now the Clippers are moving out; they've built their own. Now, how many back-to-backs do they have to play? And they're still Lakers
they can give a back-to-back with the Clippers, and it's not really a back-to-back in the true manner.
They would double up with a day game and a night game.
Well,
I see what you're saying. Yeah,
they play each other.
Right.
Yeah. So
that did help them with a couple dates. Nonetheless, that's a busy arena.
Yeah. And they don't play back-to-back in hockey? Never hear about it.
No, you don't. Did they at some point and they got rid of them? I don't know the answer to that.
And you never hear about load management.
You don't hear about load management in hockey.
Right. Why is that?
We have many things to learn about hockey. It's an interesting question.
But you never hear of dudes sitting out for rest.
Nope.
Now they shuffle them in and out constantly. So they're
got your line changes.
Yeah, they're not on the ice.
They do have some back-to-backs.
Hockey?
I'm looking at their schedule, but it's not nearly to the level of what the NBA deals with. I'm talking like maybe 1 a month.
So that'd be like max 6. Yeah, I would like to see a way where they can do away with that. I think it's such a shame because the product is good. And they cheapen their own product by doing that. And then they cheapen it even further by sitting out.
I wish I could argue that with you.
Right.
But that's the way it is. And it is a good product. And I've enjoyed it for years. I've consumed it for years.
Right.
But it definitely is diminished when guys don't play, especially when the stars who you want to see don't play.
It's the worst regular season, and it's the worst All-Star game.
Is it the best playoffs?
You can argue yes. And I think that's a personal preference.
Personal preference.
I would have no problem with somebody making that argument and me accepting it.
It's close with football, but what football has over all the other sports is it's not series, so the drama and the pressure, as soon as they step on the field, somebody's 3 hours away from
Well,
being
I
done.
think what they need to do, and we've been talking about this for years, is don't have it stretched out over the first round so long. And then what baseball is doing this year is the start of the World Series is a flexible date depending on what happens leading up to it. The NBA giving us 10 days off.
The fixed date ruins the momentum.
Right.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz. Coming up next, stay with us. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. We are joined now by David Locke. His weekly appearance is brought to you by the Murdoch Auto Team. David, good morning.
Good morning, guys. What a pleasure. Friday mornings, DJ and PK. I haven't gotten to do this in a while. It always feels so empty when I wake up on a Friday morning and I don't get to talk to DJ and PK, and I don't have to worry about that. So, I mean, I will be honest, I'd rather be in Maui not talking to you than in Salt Lake Park City talking to you, but I do love talking to you.
That's weird because on my phone just came up, you know how photos will come up? It just came up the Maui trip that we took in January. I'm literally looking at it right now, and you brought it up, Maui.
There you go.
That's
so yeah,
weird.
I mean, I'll be really honest. I miss you guys not enough to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning in Maui to see you or to talk to you. That, if I'm being honest.
I miss you enough to where I would travel to Maui to stay with you.
You know, that is so heartwarming. Do you like me enough to? Never mind. We won't find out how far you go.
To visit you in Maui? Yes.
Yeah, and if it's my place and I'm paying for it, you're really willing to come, right?
Oh, then I'm madly in love.
Okay, good. Just wanted to check. Just wanted to make sure I understood the parameters which we're speaking of here.
That's what friends are for.
He gets pictures of Maui. What popped up on my computer right as you started talking, the NFL kept its most advanced data hidden for years. Now it's finally on sale. The NFL, always one more way to make a buck. Would you pay for NFL analytics? Do you love analytics that much?
Well, I pay for NBA analytics, so I don't see why I wouldn't pay for NFL analytics.
Work is the easy answer to that. The NBA stuff helps you work.
Yeah, I would probably pay for a lot of the NBA analytics anyway.
Okay.
What are they putting out there?
I don't know. It's a Wall Street Journal story. I haven't read it yet.
Oh,
it just popped up.
Wow, look at you subscribing to the Wall Street Journal.
No, it's on Twitter. I'm not subscribing to the Wall Street Journal. If I did, I would know it, but I don't. Just popped up. It's essentially an ad. All right, the Utah Jazz made a bunch of moves since you were, or while you were out sunning yourself and golfing and going to the beach in Maui. Do you expect more moves before the season starts?
No.
This is it. This is the team.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the NBA is dormant right now. It's kind of like sacrilegious to make a move right now. This is the one time everybody, I think, takes vacation, gets time off, and all of that. So I can't imagine. I mean, obviously something could happen in training camp, but most teams that are pretty optimistic of where they are. I can't think of a team right now that's in desperate need of something that we have. Now something could change and someone gets hurt or something happens, and then suddenly somebody that's on our roster right now doesn't look appealing to anyone else. And then I guess, so that's someone calling us. And then I guess the other answer is, what's ever going to happen with Brandon Ingram? I don't see that play making sense for us right now. So, at this point, I think the 2024-25 season is going to be largely about finding out what we have in 6 different players. And that's going to be the delicate dance for Will Hardy of, no free minutes and playing with a purpose. At the same time, with 3 first-round draft picks coming in the upcoming draft, we really need to have a pretty clear idea as best you can on the rookies. But on 7 players, really, I guess, Keontae, Taylor, Bryce, and Walker, along with the 3 rookies.
Yeah, I totally agree. How about the philosophy then? And, we understand you've spoken about it. We've referenced it many times of the no free minutes, but maybe allowing them to play through more mistakes.
Yeah, I think you earn that, though, right? So if you've shown, like last year, if we take Taylor, for example, Taylor in camp compared to Kelly and John Collins, it wasn't close, right? And so that's really free minutes. If he had just, if Will had just announced Taylor Hendricks is our 9th pick and he's going to start and play 26 minutes a night no matter what, that's really free minutes. I would hope that we come to camp this year, Taylor with the experience he gained last year, little growth, the body looked way better. Our strength and conditioning staff, I thought, did an incredible job. I thought he looked really different in Summer League. And he comes out, and it's clear that, he's probably the best power forward we have, or, depending how you're going to play him as a 4-3 with Lowry, and he's earned that. Then I think you start to give him some leeway. But you can't just get the minutes and then get the leeway also. Like, Keontae's probably at this point earned the leeway, right? Like, he's going to be our starting point guard or one of our starting guards. And he's 2 for 11, putting out the effort, but not shooting it well. You leave him out there.
Right. I buy that. And the others haven't yet, but they've got to do it.
What you can't do, though, and the key to that was he's putting out the effort. Like, I don't care who these young guys are. When they come out in game 34 and we're in New Orleans after 3 days off in New Orleans, woo! And, you're running around like dead man walking, like, you got to pull that. Because the minute that gets acceptable, you've got a tough road to get over that. Once you start allowing that, you're in trouble. And I think the biggest lesson recently from any team is what happened with Houston. And what happened with Houston was that they had all these young players. They were awful under maybe Steven Silas is a great guy, but there's a feeling he lacks in direction as a head coach. And Jalen Green was abundantly available at the trade deadline this year. And then all of a sudden, he goes nuts in the second half of the season, where he's now played under Ime Udoka, played under structure, played with Dylan Brooks, played with Fred VanVleet, played with veteran players. The offense starts to run around Alfred Sengun, then Sengun gets hurt, and Jalen Green goes nuts. And you're like, oh, that's why we drafted him number 2. But they were within, a taker of trading him at the deadline, because in the 2.5 years of non-structured, no expectation, no standard basketball, he looked awful, and they were about to quit on him because they didn't want to extend him at the end of this year. Boy, that could have been a really catastrophic error, and you just got to make sure that your guys are in a structure where you can actually evaluate them. And I think that's why re-signing Lowry is so important, because I would like to forget every minute I saw from Keontae George last year without Jordan Clarkson and Lowry Markkanen on the floor, because I generally think they were unfair. Like, here's a guy who's probably the 175th or 200 best player in the NBA last year, and you're asking him to be the best player on the floor? Well, he looked like crap doing it, not studying. And so I'd like to erase that from my memory, along with every high school song lyric and phone number that I still have, and get that off my hard drive so that it doesn't impact my thought process when I think of Keontae, because I just think those were unfair minutes. But if we had traded Lowry, that's a structure by which a player has any chance to show if he's getting any better.
Are all of these young guys going to be with the Jazz, or are some of them ticketed to the G League, or do we get to watch them all develop, for better or worse?
I think the roster is set in a manner that it's available for all of them to be with the Jazz if they play well and have decent camps. And then I feel like there's a player that's sitting behind each one of them that is not dramatically different or brings a little something that would allow, hey, you know what, why don't you go play 30 minutes a night instead of 12 in the G League this week? Patty Mills is going to play backup point guard. Why don't you go, Kyle Filipowski, why don't you go play Drew Eubanks is going to play? Like, they're viable, solid NBA players who know how to play. Eubanks was really quite good in some stuff in Phoenix last year to dig into the second-tier numbers. And so I think you have the ability, like, Isaiah Collier, if he has a good camp, comes out ready, yeah, it'd be nice to see him for 15, 20 minutes a night as your backup point guard. On the other end, if there's a moment where he feels like he's getting overwhelmed or there's some value to having him actually play 30 and have him actually kind of lead a team or maybe shoot a little bit more or work on his shot a little bit more, I think you have a roster that allows you the flexibility to do that. And the same thing with Bryce and Cody. Luke, totally viable NBA player. You can play him, and you could get Cody and Bryce down to the G League to get time if you want it.
What do you think the philosophy is behind the Mills signing?
I think Will already loves him from his time in San Antonio. And so I think in a year in which there will likely be more L's than W's, it's really valuable to have guys on the roster that will hold things together and set a model and do things the right way. Like, it's really a problem if your 13th, 14th, and 15th guys are leading people astray. And so I think, the Eubanks, Mihailuk, Mills signings are all guys that have impeccable reputations of how they conduct themselves as professionals and how they do things. And in the case of, I think, both Eubanks and Mills, people in our organization have seen them work day to day. So I think that's the concept behind it. And then also they're viable so that if, in fact, an injury or someone wears out or someone needs a break, you can play them.
15 back-to-backs, 7 and 8 game homestands and road trips. Aside from your personal comfort, does that matter for the team at all as they go through rebuild mode, or the schedule is really less important than ever, especially because you don't even know what looks like a hard game on paper? The other team may sit 2 guys, and it changes everything anyway.
Yeah, no, I think, obviously I want as many road games as possible prior to Christmas is always my rule. Keep me in Utah from Christmas to April 15th as much as possible, please. Only just a little addiction problem I have that I need to, deal with. But so the schedule is good in that. I think we played like 18 of our 41 road games before Christmas. So I'm very pleased. I think, there's a stretch in December that looks like it could be really brutal, but actually we don't know because the NBA Cup games. But if you can kind of see where the hockey team is, and the hockey team is, I think, home for the front half of that little stretch. So I would assume that we're playing another road game, then home for 1, and then back out for 5. Like, I think if you now look at December and assume that it's a home game on the first spot for the NBA Cup and then a road game for the second, I think, don't we do something kind of crazy like play 14 or 15 games in different cities like that? Something of that sort?
Yeah, something of that sort. There could be a lot of time on the road.
So, I think that's just that'll probably be the make or break part of the season. It could probably start. I haven't looked at who our opponents are in that sense. Could probably start okay, surprise some people, win some games, and then that stretch when the margins are tight and then you start to get worn down is probably where things could make or break.
How much do you think that the Jazz are communicating with Markkanen about the plans or potential plans? He's a great player. He's signed on, but obviously he's looking at least one, if not two more seasons of heavy losing before they can start to get better. And I'm just wondering if he accepts it based on the knowledge that they've given him. What do you think of that theory?
Communicated with him well. That communication is a little difficult, right? You can't really tell him we're never going to trade you, because that's not true. So, I don't know exactly what you're, we believe in you. Here's $200 million. Okay, well, that's pretty clear.
Yeah.
We want you here. That's true until someone offers us something that's better for our franchise, and then we're going to trade you. That's just the reality. That's not Lowry. That's just the truth in the league. It's really the truth for everybody, including Luka Doncic, except for the fact that there's no package that's available to Dallas ever that would be better than Luka Doncic, so he kind of knows he'll never be traded. And seemingly the same thing with Giannis in Milwaukee, but again, you never know. They have a bad year this year, then they're against they're going to trade Giannis, right? So I think you're communicating with him, but it's like you don't want to be on the hook for just lying to someone. I always think the one that I am skeptical of is when the player says, "Oh, the team said they'd send me to the best situation for me." I'm like, yeah, I don't think that's really true. I don't think any team's ever actually said that. That might be what you heard, but I'm pretty certain that's not what they think they said. So I always hear that at trade deadline, like, "Oh, so-and-so's a liar. They said they'd send you to the da-da, and I went to, Minnesota. They said I'd go to a good place." Like, oh, well, maybe they deemed Minnesota a good place. So I always think that's a little questionable when I hear that from someone, because I just am not entirely sure I think that's true. So I think you have to be really careful. But I mean, Lowry, in his Holly Rowe interview on the Lofo or Front Row podcast, and in some of his other quotes, I mean, he seems like he's got it. Like, okay, I'm going to be the man. We're going to have a hard time winning games. We're going to try to win as soon as we can. And I really like Utah, so let's see what we got.
Do you think he'd really like Utah if he went on a trip with you to Maui? Or do you think that he'd start changing his ranking of the states here in the old US of A?
Well, I'm not sure what you're really asking there. Lowry would have a perfectly good time if he came on a trip with our family to Maui, and his kids would too, because his kids are super cute, and my kids would play with him all the time, so he'd get all his time off, and we'd just play with his kids, so he'd be great.
More likely to go on a Maui trip with you, me, PK, or Lowry?
Unquestionably PK.
There it is, PK.
He might get in my suitcase.
Well, I don't know what to say.
You've rendered PK speechless. Good work, David.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. What can I have a quick? It's August. I need my quick Cliff Note summary. Utah, top of the Big 12. BYU, near the bottom. Give me the why on each.
Utah's done a lot of winning the last 5 years, and there is not a team with the pedigree and the consistency and the roster that they have, so they get the top spot. Oklahoma State and Kansas State get a lot of respect, so it's not going to be easy or a slam dunk, but they are definitely the favorite going in. For BYU, they were 2-7 in the league, and they still haven't named a starting quarterback, and that alone, those two things alone, will put you in the bottom third of the league.
Which of those two do you think is most likely to be wrong?
I think there's a better chance that BYU moves to the middle than Utah moves to the middle, if that's what you're getting at. I mean, if Cam gets hurt, Oklahoma State and Kansas State can win that league in a heartbeat. There's not that big a gap.
And then Big 12 question, are Oklahoma State and Kansas State actually any good?
Yeah.
I mean, like how good? Like, are they top? What are they really? Like, if they're in the SEC, are they finishing fourth or are they finishing ninth?
Yeah, that's really hard to measure now because these leagues, it looks like they're really not going to play each other very much. So there's very little data. They're all in their own bubbles.
If they're in the Big 10, are they finishing fourth or are they finishing ninth?
Fourth. I don't think the middle. I don't know that the middle of the Big 10's that that good. And I'm not sure I buy that. The top's very good, as I think the playoffs have shown.
So you figure in the SEC, Kansas State and Oklahoma State might be 9th. In the Big Ten, they might be 4th.
I don't know about 9th. That seems a long way.
Texas, Oklahoma, Georgia, Alabama.
I don't know that Oklahoma's great, but okay. Texas has already lost their top 2 running backs.
Okay.
I think LSU's got to reload a bit, so they might be down a little bit. I mean, there's a lot of big brands there, but I don't know that they're all going to be great at the same time.
Okay. And one of those Mississippis is all fired up. Our SEC people are all fired up.
Yep.
I was listening to our SEC preview the other night, so it's fine.
Thank you, David. We got to run.
Okay.
You're the man. David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz. When we come back, Kurt Schmid, Chief Soccer Officer for Real Salt Lake. That was a lot of moves right at the deadline, right at the end of the summer transfer window. We'll talk with him about the new guys next. Stay with us. DJ and PK. It's 97.5 The Zone.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
Lauri Markkanen agreed to a renegotiated contract this year, bringing his salary from $18 to $42 million. I think it's a good day for the Jazz. If you're a Jazz fan, you're happy about what this means for your team. Lauri truly could have waited a year, played out this deal. He's got $18 million left, and just said, you know what, I'm going to get a max contract next year anyways, and I can choose where I want to go. He chose to stay here. This is a good sign for the Jazz. This is a player in his prime who's an all-star on a losing team that is choosing to stay here.
I doubt that Lauri thinks in his mind that all of a sudden he morphed into an all-star between Cleveland and Utah. I think he likes getting the ball. He probably doesn't think he changed as a player or deserved more or got better. He probably thought, like, these bozos in Cleveland don't know what they got.
Yep.
They got the finisher, baby.
Hear Jake Scott and Ben Anderson every day from 10 to noon on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
DJ and PK, don't miss your chance to win big every week on The Zone. This week on Win Ticket Wednesday, you can win a pair of tickets to see Train and REO Speedwagon at Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater on August 29th. Listen to The Zone all day Wednesday for your chance to win. We're joined now by Kurt Schmid, Chief Soccer Officer for Real Salt Lake. The summer transfer window, RSL really busy right at the end. One player leaving, three attacking players showing up. And Kurt, good morning.
Morning. How are you?
Good. I think a lot of people were wondering, how is RSL with 9 games left in the season? Gomez had 13 goals and 9 assists. He's gone, but there was no depth up front. You've probably got 2 new starters and 3 new pieces for those 4 attacking players. Is the team better today than it was when the transfer window opened?
Yeah, look, everything we do, we want to make the team better. And I think we've got an increased level of depth, an increased level of competition amongst the squad. I think we've added talent to the group, overall. So I think we've raised both our floor and our ceiling, even though it's going to certainly look a little bit different with departures and incomings. But I think we've been able to successfully raise both of those things.
With the time off in games, is it a good time to do this, to maybe have opportunities to mesh everybody together?
Yeah, I mean, look, this gap in games is probably not ideal from a lot of standpoint. It's just a big rhythm killer, but it's helped us, I think, work on some things tactically and have a little bit of a mini preseason. Not everyone is already in, but there are a few guys in already that have begun to mesh and gel with the team. Jermaine's been in. Benji's obviously here. Diogo has been training a little bit as we're waiting for some paperwork. So it's been good to get those guys settled in.
So you mentioned Diogo, and it seems like he could, if he clicks, have a massive impact on this team. The number 10 attacking midfielder right in the middle of everything. Where should fans set their expectation for him?
I mean, wherever they want. But I think, I think we expect him to contribute quite a bit to the attack in terms of setting guys up, in terms of finishing plays. We needed another piece in the midfield that could could add to our attack and just be more dangerous. And I think when we've got more guys that can hurt teams, then it becomes a lot more difficult to shut down any single one of them. If they're worried about Chicho, then you've got Diogo, then you've got Diego, you've got Crooks, you've got whoever we end up playing on the right between Dominic and the other options. If they worry about Diogo, you got Chicho freeing up, you got Crooks finding space. So it's difficult for them to shut any one guy down when you've got so many weapons.
These guys have been playing this sport for a long time. Obviously, that's the way it works across all professional ranks. They've been literally playing it virtually their whole lives. I'm wondering, with that in mind, you bring up Chicho, you bring up Crooks and all this stuff. How long does it take to understand the tendencies and the mindset of guys that you're playing with to making sure you're all together? Pablo's talked about scanning the field and making sure that you're staying ahead of the game, so to speak. I'm just wondering, how long does that take before it can come together?
It really depends on the individual. And look, I think part of the job that Pablo and staff are doing, and they've done so well this year, is by really specifying and simplifying players' roles and being very clear with what they are so that players can accomplish their job. And as long as they have trust that everyone's going to accomplish their job, they can do their own business and everything's going to turn out okay. And so by simplifying the roles and making it tailored to that player's skill sets within our system, it makes it a lot easier for them to settle in. And so, if we're being very clear with them, then they know what to do. If we were a little more free-flowing, maybe it would take a little bit longer because, like you said, it becomes more about tendencies and getting used to each other. But while there is always an element of that, I think you can get around some of it by being very clear and specific with them.
Obviously, attacking players get judged on goals and assists. There's no way to get around those numbers. But at the same time, Pablo has preached high pressure, never given teams a second to breathe. As soon as they win the ball, you're trying to win it back from them. Diogo, Dominic, Lachlan Brook, how good are these guys at pressing, and how quickly can the group be good? To PK's point about chemistry, you have to know when it's on, when it's not. When one guy goes, does everybody go with him? How good are these guys defensively and pressure from all the film you've watched and the games you've scouted?
Yeah, I think there were probably two things that were relatively high on our list. One is versatility. I think everyone we've signed adds an element of versatility, but the other one is what you just highlighted, which is the willingness to press. And if we couldn't see that in video of them playing, at their previous stops, then it wasn't really something that interests us. So finding guys like Diogo, like Lachlan, like Dominic, that we felt comfortable were attacking players, but that we're going to add on the defensive side and give us that defensive work rate and pressing ability, we wouldn't have brought those guys in.
With this much time with no games, how do you guys manage to make sure the guys are not over practice, but still doing enough to maintain conditioning and all that type of stuff?
Yeah, that's a good question. Obviously we lean on sort of the sports science side quite a bit in terms of the rhythm and the microcycle, making sure that, you're not pushing them too hard. You got to push them hard enough that it pushes outside their comfort zone, but then let them come back into it so they can regroup. So we are working towards sort of, even though we're going a couple weeks without games, we're trying to be on a little bit of a game rhythm. We're going to play sort of a bigger 11-a-side tomorrow just to kind of put it on the same rhythm as a season with a Saturday sort of game. So we're just trying to do little things to keep them in rhythm, but obviously push them a little bit harder during the week because we don't have a game where we need to peak on the weekend. And so we can push them a little harder during this past week. And as we head into next week, we can taper off and make sure the guys are fresh and ready to perform on game day.
There's a lot of negatives to having this much time off. Is it good for the league? Is it good for the business? There are playing dates that could be really useful to clubs, and they've been knocked out of the tournament, and they can't use these Saturdays in the summer before the NFL starts and college football gets going. We can get into all of that. But just for this year, for this team, I did have people really close to the team who I think know a lot more soccer than me say the team is really tired. And just from a results perspective, the last 5 games, all competitions, 1 win, 3 losses, and then you had the 1-1 game in L.A. So the team wasn't really getting results and points at a very good clip, and people are saying it's tired. Is this break really a break for the club, given how things were going?
Yeah, I think they're always double-edged swords. Like you said, rest is a key factor there, but rhythm is another one, and consistency. And so you're kind of battling both those things because they're kind of pulling at opposite ends of the spectrum. But yeah, the team had been worked pretty hard. You know, there was a couple injuries along the back line, and along with sort of not having quite as many depth pieces, which is obviously why we brought some guys in that could compete and push and impact the games off the bench. But not having as many of those in the last couple months has certainly, caused some guys to log a lot of minutes. And while that's good, again, from a consistency, form, and rhythm standpoint, eventually it does wear on you, and there's not just a physical fatigue, but there's a mental fatigue. And so I think this break can hopefully alleviate some of that with our guys, and we've now brought in, more competition, and hopefully that'll sharpen us all up as we, get into the rhythm for the stretch run.
Has Pablo's golf game gotten better during this time off?
Oof, probably. I mean, I don't know, because I'm a terrible evaluator of golf games, as I'm not an avid golfer.
Take the fifth on that one. Just pass.
Last person to ask. I am.
Are you sleeping better now? Because where you bring people in from Australia, I figure they're 7 hours. They're 7 hours behind tomorrow. It's super confusing. My wife has a college friend. I can never follow it. But it's like, careful. You're about to call them at 4 a.m. or they're about to call you at 2 a.m. or something. And then in Europe, were you literally negotiating around the clock here, given the fact you're bringing somebody in from Poland and Australia?
Australia was not quite so troublesome, spot on about the time difference, but you just gotta work later into the late afternoon and the evening, and then first thing in the morning maybe you can do some stuff. But that wasn't as tough. Poland, I was probably living the last few days on the Polish time zone, so that wasn't ideal for my sleep habits, but hopefully I can get back to a normal rhythm here too myself.
All right. Well, Kurt, we appreciate a few minutes. Thanks for joining us. And a week from Saturday, the 24th, San Jose, the last place team in the West, at home. Big opportunity to pick up 3 points there. We'll look forward to that. Thanks, Kurt.
Thanks.
Kurt Schmid, Chief Soccer Officer for Real Salt Lake. Brett Siegel, NBA reporter for Clutch Points. No team in the NBA makes him scratch his head more than the Utah Jazz. What's got him so confused? What could they do to straighten it out? That's coming up at the top of the hour right here on 97.5 The Zone.
Accessing.
This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G.
From the Mercury News and the Wilner Hotline, John Wilner.
How do you think their style transitions to the Big 12, John?
Well, I think it's more about how does the Big 12 adapt to Utah, to be honest. They're just so different than most teams around the country, the way they play, their physicality. So to me, it's more about Big 12 adjusting. And certainly, I've seen on social media, Big 12 fans haven't taken too kindly to Utah kind of coming in like they run the show. But I think there's a lot of parity in the Big 12. But to me, Utah is the team to beat. And I think the Utes can have a real good season and make the playoff as the Big 12 champ.
Catch Hans and Scotty weekdays from noon to 3 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Nominate the youth sports volunteer that you know for the Hercules Hero of the Week. Submit your nomination at kslsports.com/contest, and then listen every Thursday afternoon to JJ and Alex for the winner. Help us celebrate the efforts of those volunteers making an impact with the Hercules Hero of the Week, sponsored by Hercules Credit Union and Beehive Meals.
DJ PK, it's 97.5 The Zone.
Yeah, it is.
We have... Yes, thank you, PK. We got questions up here, and we got people reacting to them. BYU basketball has the number one recruit in the country.
What the crap is going on with BYU?
What is going on down there?
Where did this come from?
Two things.
What?
I think you've got you got a former NBA coach who says, I can develop you an NBA player. That gets everybody's attention.
Whoop-de-doo.
And they got
There's
NIL.
been plenty of those guys.
And they got NIL money.
There's been plenty of NBA players who become coaches. This guy wasn't even anywhere close to being a player.
He's an NBA coach who's now a college coach.
But they played in the NBA or they coached in the NBA.
Yeah. I think a combination of that and NIL money. There you go.
That's it. That's all it took. They've had 2 Sweet 16 appearances in my lifetime.
And now they got the number one recruit in the country visiting.
And they've got 14 lottery picks next year.
You got something else you want to put on the list? Something I missed. You've thought about this. You put the question up.
I don't know. I said, what's going on? I don't know. I'm scratching my head.
That's for the next segment. Yak, you want to add something to the list?
Come on.
Those are the 2 obvious ones to me.
DeBonsa's family apparently is enthralled with what BYU can offer. His parents have visited campus twice.
And what is it BYU's offering?
Well, that's the thing, is they can offer potentially millions because that's what it's going to take.
NIL and a former NBA assistant coach.
Let's not underestimate salvation.
Well, okay, that
has actually worked for years with many recruits.
That aside, PK. As I understand it,
a lot of recruits, that was a priority.
DeBonsa came on an unofficial visit to BYU not that long ago, and according to the reports, Kevin Young, in the middle of that visit, called up Chris Paul and was like, hey, talk to this kid. Like, that type of stuff.
I get that, but there's plenty of places.
There's plenty of that. Sure.
And there's plenty
Penny
of
Hardaway can do that.
Plenty of NBA
Mark
players.
Mark Manson can do that.
Plenty of NBA players, current NBA players, will point a teenager towards a college.
Now, why wouldn't Cal be blowing up? Matson played, coached, buddies with Shaq.
I don't know how aggressive they are with NIL money. Originally, they were in the bottom quarter of NIL. They were just not aggressive.
So BYU all of a sudden is a money factory, just doling out cash to these players left and right.
Yeah.
I don't believe it.
You don't believe it?
Not to where they can get more other places. Because once you go down the money thing, then you can't just selectively go down the money. I believe that they're giving money, but once you put money as a priority, well, then you can't just take it away if somebody else offers more. You see what I'm saying there?
There are, to your point, is BYU offering more NIL than we ever thought they would? Sure. But Kentucky, Kansas, Baylor.
Well, here's the thing,
Alabama,
Kentucky's not even
North
in on this,
Carolina, right? But I assume the NIL
I'm with you on that.
Right.
Flowing.
So that's why I'm hesitant to just go money. I get money.
Right.
But don't put it way up there.
I'm with you on that.
Because
PK.
then you got to cross the board and go, well, if it's that big of a priority, then take the most cash.
It's flowing at these other elite schools.
Yeah.
I totally believe that.
I think there's a rep for Kevin Young, too, just among
that's a factor,
high-level players. Yeah. Like, they like this guy.
And he does appear to have all those qualities. And I've interviewed him, 3 times? And he's got it. I'll give him that. There's no doubt. He doesn't need any training. He's got it.
He can recruit.
He's
a people person, right?
Yeah.
And they're setting up the thing next week, and he's going to meet with the local media and get to know people.
Are you going?
I don't know. I just saw the email last night. I haven't talked to anybody else on the staff.
Well, at your place, I'd send you. You're the best they got.
Thank you. You're going to say that to every one of us when you talk to us. I know how you are. You're going to be over there. It's the same thing. That speech 3 times. You want to go. You're the best you got.
I'm selling it.
You are.
It's just crazy, though. We're talking the number 1 recruit. For what that's worth. I mean, Isaiah Collier was the number 1 recruit a year ago, and we'll see what he does. But he didn't exactly light up college and was a game changer at the college level.
BYU hasn't had that many first-round draft picks, and he was still a first-round draft pick. Even though he's not number 1 and he slips, he's still a first-round draft pick.
And that's not
BYU's profile.
Yeah.
It's not who they've been.
Right.
They have a very limited number of first-round draft picks.
And they've been fine with what they've done. They've got a representative program, but now it just seems like they're moving up like – not the next level, like 15 stratospheres.
People person.
They absolutely have.
People person connected to NBA personality /stars with NIL money and a development rep.
I just think other programs have that also.
Now, he's visiting, he's not there. You know, but
his
he's
dad
visiting.
came and loved it.
Is that your imitation of Yak?
No, it's what we hear. He's parroting what we've all heard.
The family's visited twice without this kid. The parents have come on campus
and
twice.
they've got the proximity. He's down there in Hurricane.
Yeah.
And so why? I can see what they're thinking. Why go way someplace else if I got everything I need right here?
Yeah. And the team he's playing on, he's got a teammate who's a 4-star prospect in his own right who's going to visit with him. They've got 3 or 4 guys in the next recruiting class who are considered to be top 10 prospects. So there's a lot of talent in that program already.
Kevin Young is out of control.
He's out of control.
He's going to a landscape
Rein him in.
where BYU hoop has never been. Now that he hasn't won a game yet.
He hasn't played a game
That's
yet.
the astounding part of all this.
Well, that's why he hasn't won a game. I don't think he's going to go winless his first season.
0-20. When's that first
I've
win
seen
coming?
that scheduled if they're not 13-0 by the end of non-conference.
Yeah, their non-conference is pretty soft. But they don't
They're
have
playing
to
in the
worry
Big
about
12.
that anymore.
Yeah, you don't. This isn't.
Do what you want. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
Because you're going to play your power rating or whatever they call it is going to be just fine once you get into conference.
You got 20 brutal games.
Yeah,
in
and
the Big
that's
12.
I'm looking forward to
20
it.
brutal. There's no.
Well, it's
off
on
night.
paper right now. Brutal might be a little strong.
Looks like it's going to be a
competitive.
dogfight. Yeah.
And that's
I'll
great.
give you 10 brutal games and then 10 still highly competitive games.
Well,
all 20 teams are going to be in the Sweet
You're not
16.
going to wake up this morning thinking, boy, BYU's got a blowout tonight. And that's cool.
No.
That's great.
Right. All right, DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. Coming up next, Brett Siegel, NBA reporter for Clutch Points. He scratches his head when he looks at the Utah Jazz. Why is he so confused? What can be done? That's next. Stay with us. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. We are joined now by Brett Siegel, NBA reporter for Clutch Points. Brett, good morning.
Good morning. How are you guys doing?
Good. You know, Brett, it's so funny. When you do radio or TV, and as we have found out now as we've gotten more experience with, sports on the web, you can predict a winner. You can tell people exactly what's going to happen with a game or a trade or a free agent signing. But really gets people going is the little things. And you're on the air this morning because of a little thing you wrote, but it really captures it. And it's what you wrote about the Jazz, and they are basically, as I paraphrase and mangle it, the head-scratchingest team in the NBA.
Right, and I think that this offseason, when you look at where this organization has been, it's been a lot of question marks. What were they going to do with Lauri Markkanen? What were they going to do with some of the other veterans on this roster, like John Collins, Jordan Clarkson? Is this going to be a team that hits the reset button, or like Danny Ainge in the front office have been pleading, is this going to be a team that looks to kind of contend and make moves to put themselves in a position to get back to where they were several years ago with Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert before they made those trades? Obviously, this offseason has been head-scratching, like I wrote, and it's been valid to feel that way if you're a Jazz fan, where, sure, it's great to see Lauri Markkanen extend and stay, but what's going to be the next move? Because obviously him being on this roster as a star is not enough. You need more talent, especially in the Western Conference, and then all those other pieces. Well, what's going to happen with them, especially since you are developing Keontae George to be your focal point of the backcourt moving forward, and now you have 3 new rookies coming in. It's just a lot of uncertainty surrounding this franchise right now, and I think that we're going to have a lot of questions answered as we inch closer to the start of the season, and then obviously when the trade deadline comes around in February.
Yeah, I think that there's certainly a lot of truth from the outside perspective of what you're saying. Fans are talking about here, and we interact with fans all the time, obviously, is that, what is it? You're trying to win, you're trying to lose. And sort of having both feet in doesn't really work. And you want a top 3 pick, not a top 10 pick. And if you go toward losing, then go all the way. Don't be like almost half the season and then trade your vets. Is that the way you see it in terms of head scratching? Because it can't be all of a sudden they sign Mills and it's a head scratcher for you personally. It's got to be a bunch of stuff, right?
Right, and that's kind of the whole focus of this offseason, where Patty Mills, everyone knows around the league what he can bring to the table. He's a seasoned veteran, one of the better veteran point guards that was available at this point in free agency, and you bring him in to kind of be a mentor for some of these young guys like Keontae George, like we mentioned. Obviously, you still have Colin Sexton, who he's been in the league for several years now, but he's still only 26 years old, and he could be a focal point next to Keontae George moving forward. So obviously bringing in Mills, that's more of an off-the-court move and a locker room move than on the court. But it's totally understandable, the point that you brought up, of what direction is this team really going. And if they're going to be losing and looking to tank for draft picks in the 2025 draft, well, what moves are you going to do to set yourself up for that? Because obviously they're not the worst team in the league, and that was proven last season. And when they're healthy, they do have a competitive-looking roster. I think that the Jazz can be a team in that maybe 9, 10, 11 spot in the Western Conference. Do I see them making the playoffs? I don't. But again, if you're going to be a team that's really tanking and looking towards the future to capitalize on the draft, well, you really got to put yourself in a position to do so. And I think that right now they're kind of stuck in that purgatory mode where they do have guys that can be foundational pieces and secondary pieces for a playoff contending team, but they're also looking to develop for the future. And I think that's kind of where the conundrum lies right now.
I get what happened year one. We all thought they were going to be bad. They started out 10-3. It caught everybody off guard. Nobody saw it coming. Danny Ainge was asked about it, and he said he was pleasantly surprised. But year two, I thought, okay, now they can really focus on the tank. And I don't blame them for re-signing Markkanen. There aren't that many 7-footers who can shoot, and you've got one and you're trying to rebuild. It seems like losing him is a big step back. I'm not sure I get why they have so many veterans, and I get if you turn all the young guys loose together, it could go wrong and they don't develop and they need the veteran voices. But do you think they're going to be shedding veterans midseason and avoiding what they had 2 years ago where it was a surprisingly good start and that wrecked any chance they have of drafting 1, 2, 3, 4?
I certainly think that there's going to be a team that makes moves, and Danny Ainge is, in my opinion, one of the better executives in the league. He's always known kind of what his plan is moving forward. We've seen that during his time with the Boston Celtics, what he was able to achieve, and now helping and aiding in the Jazz front office. I think that same philosophy exists of looking towards the future. And obviously when you look ahead towards the trade deadline, the one player that I circle and look at he's probably going to draw some attraction midseason based on injuries and what's happening with other teams. I think that's Jordan Clarkson. And you look at Clarkson, he's 32 years old right now. He's on a very favorable contract. And he's on one of those contracts that we've kind of seen get eliminated this offseason in the sense of he's one of those middle-tier players. He's making around $14 million this year, and then he's under contract again for $14 million for the 25-26 season. We're not seeing many of those contracts being given out anymore in free agency because of this new first and second apron rules and all the financial restrictions that teams are facing by crossing the first and second apron. Obviously, the Jazz are not one of those teams. They're a team that actually had to sign players and give money away just to reach the salary cap floor this season, and that's kind of a big reason why we saw them sign Mikhailuk, a shooter from the Boston Celtics. One of the reasons why we've also seen them give Drew Eubanks his contract, and many have kind of questioned that contract, but it makes sense when you look at they had to reach this salary cap floor, and they're still a team that is not ready to contend at the highest level possible. They're still building and looking to develop their youth further. So in terms of guys that could be moved, I think that Jordan Clarkson is absolutely the first guy that we look at. John Collins is a player that has been rumored to be on the block for the Jazz since last season. And then obviously there's going to be questions about Colin Sexton's future simply because you just drafted Isaiah Collier in the draft. You have George there. You brought back Johnny Uzang on a contract. So what's kind of your backcourt looking at? And I think that we're going to get a lot of answers to that this season. And I wouldn't count out the Jazz not only being sellers, but possibly being a buyer as well and looking to get Markkanen another star to pair with to really grow this young core.
So you think the veterans that you just mentioned would be having more trade value at the trade deadline than leading up to the season or early in the season? Is that accurate?
I do, yes. I think that the main point there is that the NBA season is unpredictable. You don't know which teams are going to start hot, which teams are going to get hot late, what injuries are going to happen, and that obviously plays a role in how teams view some of these guys like Sexton, Collins, and Clarkson. If they have a clear need for a player like that because of injuries, that could be more appealing to them, and they may be willing to pay the price at the trade deadline. Obviously, heading into the season, and based on how we've seen things go this offseason, everything's very quiet right now. Teams aren't looking to make trades. There hasn't really been any trade conversations around the league. It's just going to be more of those wait-and-see type of seasons simply because of these new financial rules and teams pretty much being done with their roster reconstruction at this point.
I'm curious about trading those guys like Collins and Clarkson because I just don't know how financially teams are going to make it work. They're right up against it. I do wonder about the motivation to making a trade where somebody's up against the apron and the team isn't performing and everything. We need some salary relief here. The Jazz can take on salary, and they could give back a veteran or two. They could give back a couple of young players. They've just drafted 6 guys in 2 years, and Kessler's only in his 3rd year. Plus, they got draft picks. So a couple players, a couple picks, and cap relief. Do you think there's a chance that the Jazz are going to be able to get a star for pennies on the dollar because of the pressure of the second apron of financial penalties? And billionaires love their money. They don't want to give it away.
There's definitely going to be teams that have that mindset of we need to look at our financial future. We need to dip below the tax line, this and that. And obviously, when you look at the Jazz, they're in a very attractive situation there because, like you mentioned, they can offer up veterans. They can take on salary. I believe they're well below the first tax apron. I think it's around $35, $36 million below it. So right there, you can take on at least 1 or 2 contracts if you wanted to. And all of a sudden, you're a team that you're still looking for the future. You're still developing your youth, and you have draft picks in the 2025 draft, which is loaded at the top with a ton of talent. I believe there's 7 or 8 guys right now that have that number 1 pick potential. And if they were in this year's draft, they would have been undoubtedly top 3 picks. So you look ahead of that 2025 draft, there's some very attractive names there that Utah is going to have their eyes on. And if they can grab one of those guys, and let's just say it's a player like Cooper Flagg, who many are calling the presumable 2025 first overall pick, you bring in Cooper Flagg, pair him with Lauri Markkanen and this young core that you've built, all of a sudden the Jazz are looking like an up-and-coming team in the West that suddenly does now have that sense of direction. And for me, I think it's just the lack of sense of direction derives from the fact that they only have Lauri Markkanen as their star and their future piece moving forward. These other guys just seem like fillers right now, not discussing the young core, more of Sexton, Clarkson, Collins. Those are all kind of filler players that the Jazz have right now that aren't going to necessarily be a part of their long-term core. So now the question becomes, who's going to be that next guy that you get next to Markkanen? Are you going to find it on the trade market? Are you going to look for the draft? I think we may see a situation where it's a little bit of both. And the one situation that I've been monitoring in the league in terms of trade talks and looking at the Jazz is, well, would Brandon Ingram potentially be a player that they'd be interested in because he's in the final year of his contract? The New Orleans Pelicans want to win, and if that doesn't happen over the course of the first half of the season, with Ingram being in the final year of his contract and then not wanting to give him that big extension, could he suddenly become a target for the Jazz? And I think that's going to be a question that we monitor all season long, and I think that's going to be a question that the Jazz truly do ponder within the walls of their front office.
Oh, man, Markkanen and Flagg, be still my beating heart. That would be cool if they have those two. What do you think of the rooks, the 3 rooks and the 3 guys last year? I got to believe that at least one or two of these players are going to be decent.
You certainly hope so. And obviously, Keontae George, I think, has been fantastic. I think that he's everything that the Jazz have wanted, and I think that there's still plenty of room to grow there. Obviously, Bryce Sensabaugh has work to do as well on the wing, and this is going to be a big year for him to prove himself. And Taylor Hendricks as well, another first-round pick from last year, a stretch big man, and I think that they're really going to put pressure on him to improve as a rebounder and improve as a defender. I think those are the 2 areas that can really help the Jazz next to Markkanen, so it can take pressure off of the finish forward's back. You look at the 3 rookies this year, Cody Williams, he's going to be a work in progress. I think that he's not a guy that can necessarily come in right away and impact winning like his brother Jalen Williams did with the OKC Thunder. I think that he has work to do on both ends of the court, which is fine because, like we mentioned, the Jazz aren't in a contending position right now. They can focus on his development, and I think that this may be one of the best positions for him to really get that hands-on development. You look at some of the other rookies. You got Kyle Filipkowski, Isaiah Collier, 2 more guys that they're going to work with extensively throughout the season, probably see some time in the G League for Collier. And the question for Filipowski is, can he be a serviceable big man behind Walker Kessler? Is he going to be more of a guy that you keep in the low post, or are you going to utilize his passing abilities at the top of the arc? Because I thought that he was pretty impressive at Duke with his ability to facilitate an offense. So I do think that there's potential here with the Jazz, obviously in a better position than some other teams that have similar records as them from last season, where the Jazz have an established young core that they're focused on, they're building with, and they do have these veterans that can help them out. And obviously a guy like Patty Mills is really going to help Keontae George and Isaiah Collier as well. As far as the head-scratching stuff, that's simply about the direction of the franchise. I think that there's still questions to be answered, and over the course of the next 3-4 months, we're going to get the answers to those questions of who are the Jazz and what direction are they going.
Well, Brett, we appreciate your time. Thanks for writing something that caught our interest. We appreciate it, and thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. You guys have a great weekend.
Brett Siegel, NBA reporter for Clutch Points, joining us right here on The Zone. DJ and PK, when we come back, everything you missed in this show, the football, the basketball, the soccer, it's all coming up. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I present...
This is JJ and Alex.
6 SEC teams against 6 Big Ten teams, which I know is not possible. I'm just saying, if that were... Right. If that were the case, that actually would probably be the most intriguing from a TV interest standpoint. And I think that the G5 invite becomes like, isn't that cute? Well, we've always liked these storylines. Utah 2004 and 2008. Boise State being the BCS Busters. That's so fun for you guys. Just don't be a part of our national championship. Get the hell out of here.
Just don't win that game.
Just don't show up
don't
for
win
that.
that 5-12 game.
Yeah, if you win your first round game, then you know what you have to do. You have to lose in that second round at the very least.
Catch JJ and Alex afternoons from 3 to 6. Presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. Yak, from now on, don't ask PK if he's ready to say, get ready, here it comes.
I have no choice.
That's funny. All right, it's time for the Slacker Radio headlines, brought to you by Tim Dolly Mazda Southtown. Find your new Mazda at the south end of the valley at Tim Dolly Mazda Southtown. That's Tim Dolly Mazda Southtown in Sandy. NBA's schedule is out. Jazz open against the Grizzlies on October 23rd. The Celtics play the opener for the entire league because they're the defending champs, and they get the New York Knicks at TD Garden. The full schedule is out. 7 and 8 game home road trips and homestands, and some of it still to be determined because they put out 80 of the 82
How come
games.
they wait so late?
I don't know.
Like MLB already has the 25 schedule out.
I assume it's because baseball stadiums are largely baseball stadiums and don't have that many other events in them, and they have some concerts and stuff. But I assume it's more complicated in arena. There's so many shows, and half of them probably have a hockey team they're sharing with. So I assume that makes it a little more complicated.
Yeah.
Thanks for that hard-hitting analysis.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, you answered it, and I responded accordingly. What do you want from me, Maron?
Maron. You talk Jazz with David Locke. One takeaway, you can get that wherever you get your podcasts. He's back from his Hawaiian vacation. He's ready to go.
Go where?
Go obsess about the NBA.
Acknowledging there's going to be a fair amount of losing. At this point, there needs to be a significant amount of losing.
So if we're going to have a fair amount of losing, go all the way and make it significant. What's the difference between losing 50 and losing 55? 5 more losses could be valuable.
Maybe even more than that.
Ooh, the first 60-loss season in Jazz history.
If it nets Cooper Flag, everyone would sign up for that.
All right, 65 losses.
Every single person that works in the organization, every single fan, this kid Flag is going to raise the flag. He's going to be sensational. I'm convinced. I haven't seen this dominance from a high school player since LeBron.
Going back 20 years. That's saying something.
Right.
A little more than 20, but get the point.
And part of it is the availability of now seeing high school players.
More available than ever. Games on TV, games streaming, clips everywhere.
Right. They literally put his games on. And I literally watched his games. Because it's not just him. It's other guys. I've seen the Boozer boys play, Carlos's sons.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I feel like it's a work obligation to check these guys out. Because with the one and dones, they're not that far away from being in the NBA. So I want to get ahead of it. So I've seen them play. And you are wowed by Flag. You have to be.
I was wowed. Watched that video of him. It's Duke, and they've got all these. They're just constant stream recruiting one blue chipper after another.
Oh, they've got like 4 5-stars this year, and a fifth guy is a 4-star, for what it's worth.
And it's clips, but he's head and shoulders the best player. Just driving and dunking on everybody.
Yeah, and we'll get to see him this year. The Duke games, they're always on television anyway, and the other guys will watch. It's part of the gig to have an idea on these, particularly since the franchise is going to lose. If they were competing for a title, I would just be watching those guys for fun rather than trying to, hey, they might be here. But, man, if you had an opportunity to get him, I would do everything it takes.
Well, we'll see if they're bad enough because I think there's some other teams that are going to be focused on being really bad.
Well, yeah, that's the way it is.
Right.
Now, the system demands either or. You can't criticize these teams for doing it. What you criticize them for is the rebuild of the rebuild.
Everybody's going to rebuild.
And changing coaches 4 times in 5 years. All that stuff. But this franchise, we've changed ownerships, obviously, but it's still under the new ownership, looks like it has similar philosophies with the continuity and building it and doing that thing. And that's the one thing that you can look at from a Jazz perspective, if you've been a fan, and obviously our listeners, a majority of them are, is they have not been so flippant. They haven't been so easy to overreact and panic and do all these crazy things that you just wonder, what are you doing?
They haven't burned through coaches like Sacramento.
That's what I'm talking about.
Those Kings.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
What was it, one guy, Jaeger, a few years back? Yager?
Yeah.
They won more games than they'd ever won, and then they fire him.
Yep, Dave Yeager. He was out right after that.
Didn't make any sense at all.
Yeah, right.
Hey, you got something. No, you don't.
Yeah.
Let him go.
Right. And so the tendencies here with the new ownership has the same as the other one. And I think that what breeds success. And, yeah, they haven't won it all, but they've still had a lot of success over the years to where Popovich back in the day was saying, I want to be like those guys.
Yeah, he said that at the end of well, actually during the 90s run.
Yeah.
Before they won their first title in 99.
And they did it. And they got luckier.
And one more.
With Duncan and Robinson. And then to their credit, they did other stuff. It wasn't just sitting around with your feet up and getting lucky. Yeah, we'll take him. No, that's not it at all.
They got really lucky twice, but they got really smart with Parker and with Ginobili.
On and on.
Yeah, and the Jazz could have had Parker. He was on the board.
Okay. Yeah.
So you mentioned watching high school kids, and it's a duty and all that. Did you watch the first full night of high school football is tonight, and there will be games streamed and on TV, and you can go to a game. And did you watch the opener last night with Timpview and Skyridge?
I was there.
You were not there.
How do you know?
You know how I know. I literally was sitting with you.
I did
at
when I got home.
7:20, and the game had kicked off.
I did when I got home.
Yeah,
I was flicking around.
Isn't it crazy how good high school football is? I mean, the team gets down, you got to throw the ball and come back and back shoulder throws.
Compared to what?
Compared to what it was 15, 20 years ago, certainly compared to what it was when we were kids.
Well, I had the fortune, and I use the word fortune, of covering preps in the L.A. area.
And you saw some high-level football there.
Right, where dozens of kids have gone on and played in the NFL.
There were, I was looking at it during one of the commercials in the game, watching the game in the second half. There were, and they showed Kyle was at the game, and I'm sure there were tons of assistant coaches and head coaches and coordinators
Kyle's
and whoever.
brothers on the staff there.
Right, so it's a little easier. But there were probably 10 kids in that game who will get scholarships this year. Now, sophomores and juniors, I'm not even figuring them in, but in the senior class, there were 10 kids. And some of those at the Big Sky level.
But, well, who cares if it's the Big Sky level?
It's still D1 college scholarship. I get it.
But at the same time, I don't care about that. That's nice. But how about the undersized kid who plays his you-know-what off?
Yeah.
And he's not going to get a look because he wasn't blessed with the physical characteristics in a lot of cases that you need.
You're a good football player, and I love and you're smart and all that, but you're 2 inches too short.
Right.
And you're 20 pounds too light, and when you stick out your arms from fingertip to fingertip, your wingspan isn't enough.
I like those kids, too. I don't want to
and the thing is when
underplay those kids.
When a football game is that good and there's the comebacks and that kind of stuff, those kids are playing well and making plays, too. I mean, there's 22, and people don't go both ways. So there's 44 guys and a couple of specialists.
Yeah.
And they're all playing. Now, 10 of them are going to go on to college, but the ones who aren't are still playing. I mean, the game passes the eyeball test. It's pretty good football, and then the player goes to the sideline and takes his helmet off, and he's like, you're a little kid. I mean, you're gigantic. you're huge. You'd knock me into next week.
You brought up Kenny Chesney this morning, was on ESPN's shows. I don't know if he did the other shows, but he was on the radio. And he has this song, The Boys of Fall. And Kenny's a small guy himself, played football, but he was really small, so he decided to make trillions in music, and it worked out. But this is Americana, and it's what sets us apart. This is happening now in the next couple of weeks, and tonight is more the general opening night. This is what happens literally coast to coast, north to south,
east to west, all across the country. Small market, small towns, suburbia, big cities.
Right.
Doesn't matter. It's happening.
Yeah. And when I lived in Jersey, in the town that I lived in, they'd put the players on the fire trucks and convertibles, and they'd drive up and down the streets. And they were going to be on the team. And you went to the games. I literally had no one related to me, but my father and I went to the games. Every Thanksgiving morning, they would play, and we would go.
I don't see that.
What we do in this country.
I don't see it to that level in suburbia, but when I stream a game from a small town, I still see and feel that. And you can see in some of those small town broadcasts and streaming, and I track some of the teams who've won championships here and have long winning streaks. Beaver had one, San Juan, I think it's won 37 in a row right now.
If they run the table, they will have the all-time record this season.
Yeah, they can get to 50 if they have an undefeated state title.
Which they did in the last 3 years in a row.
Well, I mean, who's the best team in the state? I don't know. Who is it?
The San Juan Broncos.
I think he was trying to prompt a Corner Canyon Charger reference
San Juan
out of
Broncos.
You. But way to stay mentally tough, Yak. I appreciate that about you. That was
the
good.
Beavers?
Okay, you tell them. We'll meet them anytime.
In a parking lot,
Thunderbirds.
In a parking lot, Irvin. They are playing up a classification going to Grantsville. I think that is 2A going to 3A.
Correct.
Yeah.
I may have already told the coach at Corner Canyon my expectations for this year.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, really?
What was his response? And can you say it on the air?
We'll take care of it.
Okay.
I said opening night. I said in a text exchange.
Yeah, by the way, how's your scouting going? Because you're Connor Stallions over here. We found out.
I'm breaking it down. Don't worry. They got IMG next week, right?
They do. I was reading that out. IMG.
Are you flying out to Florida to get an advanced look on them like Connor Stallions might?
And it's here.
Yes.
They're coming to us. It's Thursday, as I understand, right?
Correct. They were out here to play East and dominated that game a couple of years ago. So it'll be interesting to see with Corner Canyon. I mean, Region 3 is just fantastic. I mean,
Is that the region we're in?
No, you're in Region 2.
Oh.
So, but in Region 3 in the state tournament, they put 6 teams in the tournament. 3 teams lost to other teams in Region 3, and 3 teams lost to Corner Canyon. In Region 3, people make jokes about it being, the SEC of Utah high school football.
Well,
those teams are.
I need
teams win
another
a lot.
a 24 hoodie. I got the 23 hoodie. I need the 24 hoodie.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't send her to this school to finish second place.
You didn't send her. Okay.
Right.
That was awful / awesome on multiple levels. Congratulations. You didn't send her.
Right. Exactly.
You're such a big talker.
I stand by that statement.
You saw PK and JK interact.
I'm telling the truth right now.
No. Okay.
I will be down on campus today.
It'll be a lot of fun in a lot of high school stadiums. My favorites are the high school fields where there's grass off the end, and you turn around and you see the 8-year-olds throwing a football and playing 2-on-2 and 3-on-3 football. Not paying any attention to the game, doing their own thing.
Oh, yeah.
But they're there. That's where you feel like the whole town is there.
Right. And in our communities, if they're playing the Ute Conference, a lot of times they'll have the jerseys.
Oh, yeah.
They'll be wearing
all the time. You see,
you
see the 8, 10, and 12-year-olds out there.
And when I was a kid, really young, I looked up to those guys.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. They were like, wow.
Wow. When I was a kid and I got to go to a high school football game, that was a big deal. Loved it.
Yeah.
6, 7 years old.
Yeah. I even did when I was a freshman, looking up to the varsity guys. Because I had the misfortune of playing freshman football.
See, you put your hand in the dirt. 118 degrees. Guys, let's run sprints. Put a helmet on and some pads.
Yeah.
Because you're not hot enough right now.
No.
Ohio State announced a Kansas State transfer. Will Howard will be the Buckeye starting quarterback. He beat out former Corner Canyon quarterback Devin Brown, and he wins the starting job.
So there's some level of thinking on that. Wait a second. He couldn't win the Kansas State job, but he wins the Ohio State job?
Huh.
Because Kansas State's got Avery Johnson, no relation to Avery Johnson, and he was going to have that job.
He probably doesn't have the great voice either, does he?
I wouldn't think so. The Mike Tyson one?
Oh, spectacular.
So what's going on there? And anything that can cause Ohio State to lose games, I am all for.
Seems like a good year to be Ohio State. Oregon, though. Oregon's a problem.
Yeah,
Michigan's rebuilding.
Say Penn State, watch out for
they're probably the third pick in that league. Washington's just a huge wild card. Everything's new up there, which doesn't usually lend itself to great seasons. I don't know that they'll be awful, but probably not great.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody believes in USC and Michigan right now. Too many changes at Michigan, like at Washington. So many changes, so many players
I'm interested
gone.
to see what SC does. I'm always interested to see what SC does. I've been following their program since 20 years old. So let's see there. And what does Chip Kelly do? He had wild success in prior stops, and it is so unheard of to do what he did.
Leave a head coaching job to be an offensive coordinator.
Yeah, and not down a level, or up a level, I should say. You'll see that.
Oh, sure. Yes.
This is, now he's going to Ohio State, so you could argue he went up a level in theory from where he was. I get that.
No, but you're talking more about Jay Hill, who's in the Big Sky as a head coach, going to be a defensive coordinator at BYU in the Big 12.
Right.
That's a more common move.
And then you make more money. He's going to make less money.
But he's still going to make a lot of money.
Well, yeah, relatively speaking, they all do. But it's still, if not surprising, it was shocking.
It's unusual. Very unusual. He's doing what?
Yeah.
And baseball. More rule changes? How about a rule that says the starting pitcher has to go 6 innings or 100 pitches or give up 4 or more earned runs? If they're injured, they can come out. But if they're injured and they come out early, they have to go on the injured list, which presumably is going to cost them a start or two.
Yeah, I think the minimum they have is a 10-dayer. So that would be at least one.
One start.
Yeah. The more I think about it, the more I say give it a shot.
I agree. I didn't really have to think about it. I liked it from the start.
I didn't know that I did. There's 4 earned runs in today's game.
Will get you knocked out.
But sometimes that's nothing.
It doesn't mean you're
teams come back from 4-0 deficits in a baseball game.
It gets a pitcher knocked out, but that does not mean that the game can't be won.
Not at all.
Right.
Not with these dudes as big and strong as they are now, and parks, balls flying out left and right.
And it's early. You got a lot of innings, a lot of at-bats to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then starting pitchers would have to go through the batting order the third time, and you just don't see that very often. You do once in a while, but not very often.
It took a while for me to accept the 8th inning guy. Then it took a while for me to accept the 7th inning guy. I'm not willing to accept the 5th inning guy.
I could accept the 8th inning guy pretty quickly. It was when it got to 7, and I realized, and I think I followed it because I think the Padres were pretty early to committing to it because Kevin Towers, the former BYU, he's passed away now, but he was their GM, and it was pretty clear it was expensive to get the pitcher who could get to the 7th inning, but the reliever who could pitch the 7th inning wasn't that expensive. And then all of a sudden, now you got 6th inning guy.
Yeah, but just to make sure you don't talk to Goose Gossage. I went 3 innings for that save.
I do remember.
72% of my saves.
Yes. Raleigh Fingers.
These guys today, you know what they are?
Soft.
That's mild.
That's not what he would say, but we're on the radio. I have a pretty good idea what he would say. Yeah, but to see a guy come in and pitch an inning 2/3, that used to be normal. It was the starter to the closer. And then there was the setup guy. And then, like you said, the 6th and 7th inning guys. And suddenly
I'm
there were all
okay
these
with the
middle relievers.
7th, 8th, and 9th guys, but I don't want the 5th inning guy. I'm not okay with that.
When we come back, your feedback next. Stay with us.
And it's all over almost here.
Don't go nowhere.
You ready for a little feedback, PK?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Our question this morning, a lot of people talking about the Jazz schedule because it includes a 7-game road trip and an 8-game homestand. Presumably, the NHL schedule impacting the Jazz a little bit right there. You okay with that? Brian at True Blue BYU 1984. Absolutely. Jeremy, yes. People are amped up for the hockey. They're willing to make a few concessions.
I agree.
They don't care.
I understand that. That doesn't surprise me at all.
Why not? It is what it is, David says. More games.
Well, I mean, it's the new shiny toy.
Yeah, exactly. Right?
Yeah.
And how long can they sustain that enthusiasm? Well, tell me how much they win.
Yeah. Right. Remains to be seen, obviously, but for the start, it's going to be off the charts.
BYU basketball is the number 1 recruit in the country visiting in October. What's going on down there? Jason says, ask the Jazz owner why he's spending all his money on BYU while the Jazz languish in the lower half of the league. Should I click on this and see if Jason's a Ute fan? Oh, yeah, I don't even have to click on it. There's the photo. Go Utes!
Read that again.
Ask the Jazz owner why he's spending all his money on BYU while the Jazz languish in the lower half of the league.
He just signed
all of his money? Yeah,
marketing to the
it's not all of his
richest contract ever, right?
Yeah. Here's a couple $100 million.
I think it's important for this team to spend the money wisely. We're not going to go and what I thought was always miscast with Larry Miller. Oh, he's too cheap. I never understood that when I first got here and I heard that. I don't think anybody's going to say that about this guy. But the most important thing is to spend the money wisely.
Yes, always.
And right.
We've seen plenty of teams and plenty of sports.
You don't want to get hamstrung on crappy deals.
Right. No, I mean, the Mets just had their $350 million payroll that didn't do anything.
Yes. He'll spend the money. That's zero concern there whatsoever. Spend it wisely within the rules and so forth. And in my mind, he's 1 for 1 there because the only player that you would be concerned about leaving is not leaving. Right?
Ta-da!
Yeah, so he's 1 for 1. Now, we've always said the foreign player more likely to stay. Let's see about the next great American player, and there will be one. There very well could be one on this roster right now.
Time will tell.
My number one choice would be Cody Williams. And so we'll see in 8 or 9 years. Under the guidelines, they can have control for that long. That's crazy to think about, but that's where we're at.
BYU basketball has the number 1 recruit in the country visiting in October. What's going on down there? Brian has this guy beating up a vending machine. Where's my money at? Some high school kid.
But see, once you go down that money road, then that player would take the most money. So you're telling me BYU is going to pay the most money? Money's a factor. It always is a factor. And you have to be competitive.
And they certainly have that.
But there's more to it than that.
But I'm with you. First off, all the schools we always thought were cheating for years and people made jokes about, they're certainly doing the NIL thing. Why wouldn't they? Now it's legal and above board. And just the schools that have resources, even if they were only cheating a little, now they can pay a lot. Or if they weren't cheating at all, now they can pay a lot.
Right.
So I think all these teams that we see who are expected to be in the Sweet 16, the Elite Eight, and the Final Four, they're all offering a lot of NIL. Kansas is coughing it up. North Carolina, Kentucky, Arkansas now, because there's no way Calipari went there unless Arkansas had an NIL budget. There's no way. They've got it.
Well, he talked about it.
Baylor.
Bring it. I can't believe these kids are choosing BYU solely for money.
On top of that, they've got NBA players telling them that coach is good and can help you get to the league. So I think that's got to be another thing BYU's got going for it.
I would listen to Chris Paul if I were a dad of a recruit.
Right. Or Devin Booker or whoever. KD.
Yeah, I don't know that KD was there long enough to be with the guy.
Right, but we've heard Booker.
I would listen.
Yeah, and we've heard the Chris Paul story, so... Anything else you'd like to pass on to the people before we wrap this baby up?
This is a family community, and I just want to say, forget about me. I love you.
What is that?
That's an acronym for family.
Okay.
Forget about me. Yeah. I love you. As we head out to the weekend. And I want us all to reconvene Monday for another week of gloriousness.
Jake and Ben are coming up next. Stay with us.